And you are live, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, James. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for November 10th, 2021. And if you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And next thing on the agenda is our roll call. If Noreen, if you could do the roll call, I would appreciate it.
Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey,
Here.
Commissioner Fox,
Commissioner Fox texted me he was having computer problems, but he will be on in any minute.
okay.
So he's here.
Commissioner Havens,
Here.
Commissioner Linares,
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Here.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Braverman,
Here.
Commissioner Gill, Commissioner Haggerty.
Here.
You're all set.
Okay, thank you, Noreen.
You're welcome.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. I believe everything is all there's no changes in the agenda, correct, Renata?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. The next thing on our agenda is public participation. For items not listed on the agenda, speakers are limited to 2 minutes. This is for things that are not listed on the agenda. Within Zoom application, you could raise your hand if you'd like to participate during public participation. If calling into Zoom meeting by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand to be recognized. Use *6 when recognized to speak by telephone. State your name and address for the record. Is there anyone out there?
Does not appear we have anybody interested in speaking in general public participation at this time.
Okay. Next thing on our report would be our zoning enforcement officer report. I'll turn that over to our zoning enforcement officer, Eric.
Evening, commissioners. As you see on the report, most of it was for waiver and feather signs on properties this month. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I'll open up to commissioners. Do any commissioners have any questions?
Hey, Dominic,
Yes, Commissioner Woods, go right ahead.
I don't have a question, but I see on the attendee side that somebody raised their hand a few minutes late. I don't know if you want to go back and let them speak if it's back to something pertinent to non-business or not.
I can check.
Oh, they just took their
They
hand
just
down.
lowered their hand, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
And Commissioner Fox is with us with his hand raised right now.
Go right ahead, Commissioner Fox. Commissioner Fox, you might be muted.
Doesn't look like he's muted. He may still be having problems with his microphone.
Okay, all right. All right, is there anybody else wishing to speak concerning the zoning enforcement officer's report? I want to thank you, Eric. I've noticed a difference and I think you're doing an excellent job, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
Um,
Looks like
Next-
Stanley has his hand up.
Okay, Stanley, go right ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, I'm having problems. You're kind of freezing, going back and forth, and showing me I don't have enough bandwidth. I'm gonna leave and come back in.
Okay. Next thing on our agenda is remarks by commissioners. Is there any remarks from commissioners? Okay, hearing none, without any objection, I'm going to move into procedures for public hearings. I'm going to ask our Commissioner Havens, if you could read the procedures for our public hearings, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Procedures for public hearings. Order of proceedings at public hearings shall be as follows. A, convening by chairman. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by applicant limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitations should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Our first public hearing petition 42-21 zone map change from R20 to a PD zone at 35, 65, 67, 69 Culver Street and 258 Deming Street. Applicant AR Building Company Incorporated, owner RD3 LLC, and Gene S. Holtner. Contact Bongiovanni Group Incorporated, Alan Bongiovanni. This has been continued from 10/13/2021 and continued from 10/27/21.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if we may just state for the record, I see both Commissioners Sobieski as well as Mr. Fox that are in the Zoom room at this point.
oh, they're back in.
Yes.
Yes, they
Oh.
are.
I'm on
Okay,
the phone. I'm on the phone, though.
We see you, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. All right, the applicant, Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni. I'm a licensed land surveyor in the state of Connecticut with an address at 170 Payne Road here in Newington. This is our second continuation, our third meeting on the applications that are before you this evening. I'm going to be brief in my comments, really addressing some of the questions that the commission had asked the applicant to provide. At the last meeting with me, we also have Scott Hesketh, who's going to go into a little more detail about the traffic work that he had done in the initial submittal and then some additional work he had done since our last meeting. Russ Drachtenberg, one of the members of RD3, the owners of the large portion of property here that we're asking for a zone change. And then we'll have a close with Bill Sweeney, the attorney for AR Building Company. Excuse me. At our last meeting, a couple questions were raised at the end of the meeting for if the applicant could provide some additional information. One was traffic. As I said, after I'm done, I'm going to have Scott talk in detail about that, about his traffic report and the work that he's done. One of the other items that was requested was if we could provide something in elevation. The chairman, I believe, asked this to show the relationship of the proposal to the existing buildings. I prepared a couple drawings that I think show the intent. I'm going to share the screen now. And we prepared a couple drawings that show what the person is going to look at from the closest building at Cambridge Arms. This is opposite the entrance to this proposed development. This is where my cursor is the existing building at Cambridge Arms. We drew a line that's represented in red through the site, and then we prepared a profile at the lower portion of the sheet. That starts at the apartment on the right side of the sheet, shows the height of an individual, so a small scale. And then looking westerly at the development, cross Culver Street, through the wooded area to where the buildings are, and what the average view would be from that location. And basically, it's going to be screened by the existing trees that are to remain, and they will more than hide the location and the height of the buildings as you traverse the site. The second drawing that I prepared is at that same location at Cambridge Arms, looking into the site, basically straight down the driveway or parallel to the driveway, through the clubhouse to the building that would be most visible from the entrance. And you'll notice again at the right side, we have the stick figure, to scale, the clubhouse, and the apartment building. One of the things that's important here to notice, this building is set back about 520 feet from the face of the Cambridge Arms building. It's removed significantly from the street. So the scale of the building will be minimized just from the separation distance. And if we go back to the other plan, this building, the closest building to Culver Street, will be about 310, 320 feet back from the face of the building at Cambridge Arms. So although we've heard testimony that, oh, these buildings are going to be big, tall, they're going to not fit in the neighborhood, just from the setback and location, that these buildings should fit nicely in the site and not have an impact on any of the neighboring properties. Having said that, I will be available throughout the meeting to answer any questions you might have, or if you have any questions now on these two exhibits. But I'd like to turn it over to Scott so he can tell you about the traffic.
That's perfect, Ellen. Thank you. That was helpful.
I think I'm muted. Hope you all can hear me.
Yep.
Thank you, Alan. At the last hearing, there were some questions and concerns about the traffic study and when it was conducted and how it was conducted, and the capacity of Culver Street. So in response to those comments, we had the opportunity to go out and do some additional counts out at the site. Our office installed automated traffic volume counters on Culver Street and on Deming Street in proximity to the intersection. We also did manual turning movement counts at the intersection for a 2-hour period during the morning and a 2-hour period during the afternoon peak hour to measure the traffic volumes and directional flows of traffic through the intersection. We use those counts to update our projections of traffic through that intersection. And the resulting data is presented in Figure A in the November 8th, 2021 report. Since the counts were conducted during this time of COVID, we had to adjust the observed traffic volumes upward to account for normal traffic flows, or what we believe to be normal traffic flows through the area. In order to do that, we looked at all of the traffic volume counts in the town of Newington from the Connecticut Department of Transportation, where they had traffic volume counts in 2021 and during 2018. We made a comparison of the traffic volume counts in all of those locations, and that data is presented in our report. And the results of that indicate that the traffic volumes that we measured, the traffic volumes at those locations were about 20%, on average 20% higher during the morning peak hour of 2018 and 2021, and about 25% higher during the afternoon peak hour. So we took those numbers and we increased the traffic volumes which we recorded by, to be conservative, rather than 20% during the morning peak hour, we increased the observed volumes 25%. And during the afternoon peak hour, rather than a 25% increase, we increased them 30%. So an additional 5% increase, just to have a little bit of conservativeness into our study. Now, since we had automated counts and manual turning movement counts, what we did is we held the higher volumes of the two. If we observed 100 vehicles on the automated count, but 95 during the turning movement count, we held the 100 as being the appropriate number. And vice versa, if we observed 75 vehicles in the automated count, but in the manual count, but the automated count showed 100 vehicles, we held the 100 vehicles as being the appropriate number. And then we balanced the numbers and increased them by the 25 or 30% as we indicated. And again, those volumes are presented in figure A in the report. What you have on screen here is a copy of the Deming Street count. Again, the count was installed on Thursday afternoon and was picked up on Tuesday. We had a little trouble with our printouts, so we had to use a little whiteout in between. I didn't want the commission to think that we're hiding data. We're not. The counts were done on Thursday to Tuesday. And when we printed it out, it recreated some of the data across those extra days. I didn't want the commission to think we did a full 72-hour count. We did not. So that's why the table looks as it does. So we did another capacity analysis at the intersection of Culver Street and Deming Street. And the capacity analysis indications for both the background and combined traffic volume conditions. And again, during the morning peak hours, the three approaches during the morning peak hours will operate at levels of service A during peak hours under these revised traffic volume counts. During the afternoon peak hour, all of the approaches operate at a level of service C or better during peak hours under both the background and combined conditions. And the average vehicular delays are less than 20 seconds per vehicle, or 22 seconds per vehicle, pardon me, on the three approaches. Now, these adjusted volumes are slightly higher than the volumes we had previously presented to the commission. My apologies for that. Again, we're working through COVID conditions. We're doing the best that we can to present to you reasonable data. At the last hearing, one of the commissioners asked about the date of the data we were using in the earlier report. Quickly looking through my report, I indicated that we had counts from 2010, which our office had done, and 2016 counts from the DOT. I did misread that. The DOT counts, which we presented in the previous report, were 2018 counts, and they are the counts that the commissioner referred to, saying that DOT had 2018 counts on Deming Street. Now, the Deming Street counts, which the DOT had, were conducted east of the Berlin Turnpike, but they were conducted west of the driveways to the commercial properties in that location. We included a copy of the DOT map in our response showing the count location. The count which we recently did on Deming Street, we conducted just west of Culver Street, not in the same location as the DOT count. I think the traffic volumes are quite different in the two locations, so we did not recreate that particular count. In addition to the turning movement counts and the automated counts that we had done, we did look at the speed counts on Culver to determine, a lot of people said that people were speeding on Culver Street and that you couldn't see the intersection sight distances might not be appropriate. Based on the counts, we observed a 85th percentile speeds on Culver Street of 45 miles per hour in the northbound direction and 47 miles per hour in the southbound direction. And according to the Connecticut Department of Transportation, you would need 480 feet of sight distance in order to accommodate those sight distances. Based on the location of the proposed driveway, we believe we have in excess of 480 feet in each direction on Culver Street. So intersection sight distance should not be an issue. I guess the other concern was the capacity of Culver Street and how much traffic can it accommodate? That question came up at the last hearing, and I think I indicated that in excess of 1,000 passenger cars per hour per lane. I'd like to read to you a little bit from the Highway Capacity Manual published in 2010 by the Transportation Research Board. In Chapter 15, where it talks about the 2-lane highways under capacity and level of service, it says that the capacity of 2-lane highways under base conditions is 1,700 passenger cars per hour in one lane with a limit of 3,200 passenger cars per hour total in the two directions. Now, I'm not suggesting that Culver Lane should carry that volume of traffic, but based on the traffic counts that we had just conducted, Culver Street is carrying in the range of about 400 passenger cars per hour. So I think we are significantly below the capacity of the roadway with this development, and frankly, probably with any other development which could be developed on this piece of property under the existing or the proposed zoning. And in fact, we believe that there's significant capacity for this development. Now, in my opinion, the best way to determine the capacity of the intersection, not the Highway Capacity Manual 2-lane analysis, but look at the intersection at the end of the street. If we've got a good level of service of traffic into and out of that intersection, then you've got good capacity on the roadway, in my opinion. And based on the calculations which we presented, we're looking at a level of service C or better for all approaches, and less than 20 seconds or 22 seconds average delay. So in my opinion, Culver Street and by extension, Deming Street have sufficient capacity to accommodate the traffic volumes related to the zone change, and more specifically, the traffic volumes related to the potential future development that this applicant would be seeking. If the commission has any particular questions related to the analysis, I'll be happy to undertake them at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me go to the commissioners to see if they have any questions on traffic. Commissioner Sobieski, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. For Scott, quick question. Now, you gave 1,000 some odd cars that's unimpeded at a continuous flow. Does that take into account the stop controls all the way up and down the road, especially the freeway stop at Deming and Culvert?
Well, I was giving you the Transportation Research Board's definition and capacity. In my opinion, again, the capacity of the unsignalized intersection at Culver Street and Deming Street is a better indication of the current capacity of the roadway and the current operations. So Culver Street, by that measure, is operating at level of service C or better during peak hours. So there's again, in my opinion, sufficient capacity for additional traffic.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner
No,
Sobieski?
not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kalafi.
A quick question, Scott. On your screen, prior to what's on the screen right now, there was a little calculation chart. If you could go back to that, or whoever's controlling that. The question is, just so for clarification, I saw some terminology up here, Route 173 north of West Hill, and then I saw Camp Ave. You were using that for comparison purposes for this traffic study. For reference, the Camp Ave and West Hill is off a main road in town, Willard Avenue. So if you could just explain why that is named in your form here, please. Just for the general public. I think I know the answer, but I just want it on the record.
No, understood. If you go up a few additional pages, there's that table. There you go, right there.
Okay.
These are all the traffic count locations in the town of Newington that CONDOT conducted in both 2018 and 2021. So
Okay.
I didn't want to pick and choose a particular location. I wanted to give the staff a flavor of what's happening town-wide. So this is a comparison of 2018 pre-COVID to 2021 COVID conditions
Okay.
at every location that Connecticut, the DOT did a count in.
And-
So the differentials range between 4% and 152%, depending on the location. But the average town-wide is 16% on an average daily traffic volume basis.
So,
The
so
average-
with this intersection regarding Culver and Deming, does it fit into this section here as above average, average, below average for our town? How does it compare in this so that people who are in this meeting and listening to this meeting understand where this traffic concern falls within the comparison of the rest of these areas in town? Is it below average, above average, if you understand what I'm asking?
I can't tell you if it's above average or below average because I do not have two
Okay,
counts conducted in the same location in those 2 years, which would give me that information.
okay. But
I-
using, let me rephrase the question then. So using these alternate locations, I'm going to use the word alternate as a calculation purposes. The traffic study that you presented with all these different locations, that's a normal traffic study that you would do for something like what some of the town residents had asked for and fellow commissioners. This isn't something out of the ordinary that you would present to a commission in another community.
Well, what I would tell you would be that a normal traffic study probably would not occur during a pandemic.
Okay,
Everything we're doing here is not normal because we're dealing with conditions which we haven't seen before.
I understand. Okay,
So I'm doing the best I can to come up with a reasonable growth rate of traffic. And I think if you look at the chart, the averages down at the bottom of 20 and 25%
okay.
are I think they're higher than all but one of the locations.
No, and I think I'm asking the question just so people understand why this is so difficult to pinpoint. I read your report as in 2018, the traffic counts were, and if I'm correct, above normal, or would prove that even with the generated more car traffic that a proposed, again, we're here for a text amendment, not a site plan review, that even with the additional guesstimate or used number of additional cars for that area of the intersection, if an apartment or homes or whatever were to go in, that it would still meet the capacity that it was designed for back in 2018 and prior.
Yes, yeah, I don't know if 2018 was higher than 2015 in all instances in town. I believe some locations were higher and some were lower, and that data is in the report. I didn't pull it out. It's in some of those tables in the appendix. But this was, short of being able to go back in time and do a count pre-pandemic, this
Gotcha.
was the best way I could come up with to guesstimate what the traffic volumes would be based on the differences at other locations.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Claffey. Commissioner Haggerty, have a question?
Yes, Scott, that 2010 DOT manual just quoted from, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said the max for a 2-lane highway was 3,000 cars for an hour, is that correct?
That's it's the Transportation Research Board, not CONDOT.
Okay, excuse me.
It'd be 1,700 cars per hour or 3,200 for the 2-lane roadway itself.
And what is projected for this proposed development?
Well, based on the recent counts and the projections, we're looking at Culver Street having about, under 500 passenger cars per hour.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Fox?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, Scott, I'm just wondering here, I see all the, as Commissioner Claffey mentioned, you're using Leicester Road, Willard Avenue. I don't know, are you using that? Are you comparing that to Deming Street and Culver Street? Because I really don't understand how you can do that. You're talking, yeah, you've got Willard, West Hill, they're pretty straight, pretty flat, wide enough. Culver Street and Demi Street are windy. Topography is a lot different. The road itself is probably would not hold as much traffic as Willard Avenue would. And I don't know when the last time the road was repaved, and so you'd be adding a lot of stress to Culver Street. So can you explain that to me, please? Thank you.
I certainly can. The only purpose of this particular table is to determine the difference in traffic volumes townwide between the calendar years 2018 and 2021. And we used these values that were calculated at the bottom of the table to increase the 2021 traffic volumes we just observed, to increase those to reflect pre-COVID conditions. So I'm not making a comparison of these roadways to Culver and Deming Street. I'm only using the traffic volume differential on these streets in aggregate to determine how much more traffic on Deming and Culver Street likely would be due to COVID.
I'm sorry. I lost you. It sound like you. I'm maybe I'm getting a little too old for this, but I still don't understand how these traffic counts and the percentages, everything would relate to Culver, to the area we're talking about.
Well, let me see if I can explain it.
If I may, Scott, if I may, Commissioner Fox.
Yes, sir.
In this exercise on this chart, what Scott is attempting to do is take current traffic numbers, 2021 DOT numbers and 2018 DOT numbers for 7 streets around town, just to get a projection of what the traffic flow should be in general, an average across town streets, because we are in a pandemic and he needs to make a calculation as to what the expected traffic will be. So he's using this as a basis, as a point of reference, rather than saying we're going to hold the 2018 numbers as is. He looked at the current numbers that are available from the DOT. He took an average of what they were. He applied a factor of safety. He increased the actual number between 25 and 30% to reflect what his estimation and his traffic study would project. It's not a comparison of road to road. It's just to give us a reference as to how many cars are actually traveling these roads today and how many cars were traveling these roads in 2018. Because we're in a pandemic, we don't have all the exact information. We know when the pandemic hit, the cars stopped driving down the roads. They're not back to where they probably would have been had the pandemic not hit us. So this is to lend some credence and some facts, if you will, to the numbers that Scott is portraying. I hope that helps.
I'm not too sure. So in other words, you're using these figures, to show whatever traffic counts will go up and everything, but I still can't figure out how it relates to Culver Street and Demi Street. Are you using, like, you're going to use a percentage, Demi Street and Culver Street, would traffic count would change in a certain, again, the relation, again, a certain relation to the other thoroughfares?
Let me one more time. Let me try it this way. We can agree that traffic volume are lower today than they were a couple years ago. Can we agree on that?
Okay.
We don't know how much though, right?
No, we don't. Not yet.
Correct. One way to determine how much is to be able to look at other locations where you have two data points, a today data point and a previous data point. So on these 7 roadways, we have traffic volume counts from 2021 and 2018. So I can look at the numbers and determine how much traffic went down because of COVID at each of these locations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I can say, it appears that in 2018, townwide, traffic volumes were 20% higher than they are in 2021.
Okay.
Now, I did a count at Deming Street and Culver Street just today, but I don't have
Yeah.
2018 counts there. So I can say if the rest of the town, they were 20% higher in 2018, it's likely they were 20% higher at this location as well.
I understand that a little better now. I will let that go and think about, now probably be back, when we have, after the residents speak. Thank you
Thank you.
very much, Alan and Scott.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
Commissioner
thank
Fox.
you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Vice Chairman Claffey, you have a question?
Yeah, just to clarify, Scott, so with that explanation you just said, with you took the 20% and then added it to for the numbers calculation for tonight's presentation, and also to take your 1,000 car count that Commissioner Haggerty spoke of his question, where I think the number came out to be a 500 car count from you. The road is rated for 1,000. The anticipated count with your 20% factor to add came out to 500 car count. So the road is justified that it can handle the 20% factor you put in, which equals around a 500 car count, if I'm right?
Yes, you're in the ballpark. Yep. That's
Okay.
correct.
So with the 500 car count, the road is still rated for 1,000. Even with your 20%, we're still under the car count capacity for that road currently, regardless of when it was last paved or anything like that.
That's our position. Yep, you are correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, one more question for Scott, please. Were there not DOT counts done towards the Richard Street at Willard Avenue and also at the Britton Avenue in Willard? And if so, I believe there should be a total of, there should be some additional count information there. I believe those might have been counted in 2018. Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that offhand. They may have been counted in 2018, but if they were counted in 2018 and 2021, I would have included them on this list. I believe this list includes all locations in town that were counted during both years.
I have the DOT count map here in 2015. The other one's upstairs. And there's like 81 total counts throughout town, 81 count stations.
So Stanley, was that 2015 or 2018?
2015.
Okay, we're talking about 2018.
Anthony, the count stations stay permanent. They don't move. All I'm questioning was, were these counted at that area, and what was the increase in volume of traffic? That's all I'm looking at. If they weren't counted, that's fine. If they were counted, I'd like to know what the increase of traffic is.
So you're asking for him to go back and do a 2015 count to get a comparison, because you wouldn't be able to if the state didn't do the recording in 2018.
But they did the recording in 2015. The question is, were they counted in 18? That's all I'm asking.
Let's have the applicant answer that question, the expert, please.
Yep.
Scott?
I do not know when the locations you are speaking of were counted, but I am reasonably assured that they were not counted in 2021. And 2021 is the magic date because I need to know the COVID conditions in order to be able to compare them to something previously. And if those locations were not counted in 2021, and I don't believe they were, for my purposes of calculating the COVID effect, they're not helpful to me in this analysis.
Okay, thank you very much. I understand. Any other questions for the applicant from the commissioners? If there's no objection, I'm going to go to the public.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
we have on our team tonight, we have one of the property owners who's dialed in, Russ Strackenberg, and if it's acceptable to the commission, I'd like to give him an opportunity to speak. He can also speak under in favor as well, if you'd rather, but I just want to make sure that he's identified.
he can go right ahead right now.
All right,
No
Russ,
problem.
if you could unmute and then just address the commission, give them your name and your address.
So that needs to be up on the floor?
Bear with us for a second. There
No
you go.
problem.
Yes, my name, good evening. My name is Russell Drackenberg. Do you want my address where I currently live?
Yes, please.
Okay, 111 Perry Road in Bristol, Connecticut. And I am part owner of the Haltner Farm located on Culver and Deming Streets. I am also a member of RD3 LLC, as well as my brother Ronald and my cousin Robert Dinello. We all have the initials RD, hence the name RD3. My late mother and our late Aunt Elsie were Haltners and sisters to our uncles Oscar and Robert. The LLC owns 2/3 of the farm, and the Robert Haltner estate owns the remaining 1/3. He is survived by our Aunt Jean Haltner, who continues to reside in the family homestead. Robert Dinello lived his pre-college years in Newington. Ronald and I lived in New Britain, but along with our cousins, spent parts of our weekends down on the farm, where we all share many fond memories of our childhood years. I understand that some neighbors want us to donate the farm to the town of Newington. Well, earlier this year, the family donated a lot on the east side of Culver Street, across from the proposed development, which represents more than 25% of the total farmland. The donation was made to honor the Haltner family and provide the townspeople of Newington a place for passive recreation in a natural setting. It was not contingent upon anything involving the remaining farmland. The remaining acres that AR Building Company Incorporated wants to purchase from us has two zones, R20 and planned development. They are requesting that land zoned R20 anywhere on the farm be changed to planned development to improve the efficiency of developing the land. Currently, the overgrown farm is an eyesore. If the Town Plan and Zoning Commission approves the zoning change, AR will construct buildings to house 225 apartments. This will help to stabilize the tax rate, provide potential customers to help area businesses recuperate from the ongoing pandemic, and bring the farm back to a new life. I unequivocally support this project. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I have two letters which I've separately entered into evidence as well with the town planner. I have a letter from two of the other owners. If I can read them during the pro section, or I can read them now at your discretion, however you want me to do that.
Yeah, we can read them in at the pro section, which is going to be right now. Okay?
All right. Just a closing remark then from the applicant, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
I know we've been at this for 3 meetings now, and we really appreciate the patience of the commission. And quite frankly, we appreciate everybody, including the neighbors who have come out for this hearing. I want to remind everyone again that this is a zone change. Ultimately, tonight, we hope you close this public hearing. But at the end of the day, it would be inappropriate for you to make a decision on this application based on our desired use of the property alone, just as it would be inappropriate to decide based on a concern that a neighbor may have about a particular element of our desired use. The ultimate question that's before this board is the proposed zone change appropriate for the betterment of the community as a whole? Does it respect the property rights of the owners and the applicant to obtain a reasonable use of this currently split zone property? Is it consistent with your plan of conservation and development? And is it consistent and compatible with your comprehensive plan of zoning, which are your zoning regulations and your zoning map? Those are the questions that you're going to be posed to you as you deliberate this application. And I'm sure you're going to be able to follow that duty and make the right decision at the end of the day. So I appreciate your time and attention tonight, and our entire team remains available if you have questions later in the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I just want to double check one last time with the commissioners. Do you have any other questions for the applicant at this time before I go to the public? Okay, hearing none, without any objection, I'm going to go to the public right now. Persons wishing to speak in favor of this application are limited to 2 minutes per person. And if you could state your name and address for the record. So go right ahead, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking on behalf of Sandra Sherlock White. This is a letter that I've submitted into the record already, November 8th, 2021, to the members of the Newington Planning and Zoning Commission. I am writing in support of the above referenced petition 4221 on behalf of my client, Jean S. Haltner, and as executrix of the estate of Robert W. Haltner. I am Jean S. Haltner's attorney and legal representative. I am the executrix of the estate of Robert W. Haltner as appointed by the Newington Probate Court. I have represented Jean and Robert Haltner for many years. Robert Haltner was born on the Haltner farm property and lived there with his family and later his wife, Jean. In keeping with his wishes, he died on the farm where he was born, and his wife, Jean Haltner, continues to live there. I'm an attorney with 36 years of practice in the field of elder law and probate. I've been an adjunct professor of law at the UConn Law School for almost 20 years. I maintained a law office in Newington for over 20 years. I grew up in Newington as a child and graduated from Newington High School. My connections to Newington are deep and go back decades to the early 1960s. I'm committed to Newington as a town for a high quality of life for its residents for years to come. In accordance with Robert's wishes and his deep and abiding love of the Haltner farm, more than 10 acres of the farm property located at 70 Culver Street were donated to the town of Newington. This land clearly could have been sold and developed, but due to the vast generosity of the Haltner family, this land was gifted to the town of Newington. This land gift is for the enjoyment of the town's residents, passive recreation such as hiking, bird watching, or similar activities. It is to be maintained in its natural state in perpetuity and therefore will be home to birds, bees, and other wildlife. Until this land was gifted, it was strictly private property of the Haltner family. The petition before the TPZ is environmentally thoughtful and in accordance with the Haltner's desire. 15 acres will remain as forest and wetlands and in a state of permanent preservation with a conservation easement. This 15 acres represents 57% of the 26 acres being developed. When combined with the gifted 10 acres, almost 70% of the Haltner's land will be preservation land. The conserved land will serve as a screen to Culver Street. The luxury housing that is proposed is close to the businesses at the rear of the property with an entrance off of Culver. This proposed housing will have high values and will likely increase property values. Since the pandemic, there's been a migration of working professionals from nearby metropolitan areas like New York and Boston. This type of housing will retain and attract young working professionals and families to Newington. With the serious aging of the population in Connecticut, we need to retain and attract younger working families, and Newington is ideally situated for them to live here. The Haltner family were farmers and worked hard to own this land, and they are in fact the legal owners of the remaining 26 acres on Culver and Deming. It is their fundamental right as property owners to sell it, make zone changes, and make decisions about its use. It is not public property. Recently, there have been trespassers on the property. This will not be allowed to continue. Just as other property owners do not want anyone trespassing on their own property, the Haltner family will not allow any trespassing on their property. I respectfully request you approve this petition. Very truly yours, Sandra Sherlock White.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one other letter from Robert Danello. I'll read it. It's a little bit shorter. To the Newington Planning and Zoning Commission, I, Robert Danello, one of the 3 RDs and 3 RD, grew up in Newington and lived there until leaving for college. I have fond memories of the Haltner farm. My mother was a Haltner and grew up on the farm. We had many good times there. Nearly every weekend in the summer, the family got together to visit and have a Sunday picnic. Summertime, I also helped my uncle Oscar Haltner, who farmed the property for many years, pick strawberries, and on occasion, tend to the chickens in his 3-story chicken coop. One Thanksgiving, I remember a family dinner with my grandpa Frank and grandma Julia, who had cooked the turkey in the old wood cook stove in the kitchen. In the winter, we had a skating pond and spent many Saturdays skating and roasting potatoes in the campfire. The farm was a magical place. When I was growing up, there were many working farms in Newington. Not long before his death, however, my uncle Robert Haltner informed me that there were no working farms in the town of Newington. Sadly, in this world of large factory farms, it is unlikely that Newington will ever have another working farm. The question is, what would be the best use of the property, which was the Haltner farm? We, RD3 LLC and the estate of Robert Haltner, have already donated 10 acres of the property owned by us to the town of Newington. This land will remain in its natural state and never be developed. The question is what to do with the remaining 26 acres. Sale of the land to the town of Newington for use as parkland would necessitate substantial development costs and would remove the property from the tax rolls, which would increase the tax burden on the town residents. I believe that the development proposed by AR Building will be the best use of this property. The density of 8 apartments per acre is consistent with other developments in the area, will provide substantial property tax revenue to the town of Newington, and will preserve a great deal of open space of the current property. I enthusiastically support the change of zoning requested by AR Builders. Best regards, Robert K. Danello, November 8th, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? You're limited to 2 minutes. I
We have
believe
one person with their hand up, Mark
Yep.
Pascantando. You can speak. You can unmute yourself.
I don't know that I'm ready. I'll wait for the residents to speak.
No, go right ahead. No problem.
Okay, so we're starting to hear from the residents, is that right?
I'm on the section where anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application, you're limited to 2 minutes. State your name and address if that's what you'd like to talk about.
I'm in opposition, so I'll wait. Sorry for any confusion.
Okay. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Please raise your hand.
I don't see anyone at the moment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please raise your hand. And before we recognize anybody, I would like to just remind you that if you could, we've presented some new information. The applicants presented some new information. So if we could keep it to that, we understand that a lot of the concerns, I think all the commissioners have heard your concerns numerous times. So if we could keep it to the new information, I'd appreciate it. If we could recognize the first person there, Eric, I'd appreciate it.
Dave Horrigan, can you unmute yourself?
David Horrigan, 30 Candlewick Drive. Thank you all for allowing me to speak again tonight. I didn't plan to talk about taxes at all tonight, but since it was brought up a couple of times in the last couple of minutes, there has been no figures presented to us whether this would be a net tax increase or regarding what the cost of services would be. We asked that question in the first public hearing, what the net gain to the town was, and we were told by the applicant that they didn't need to provide that information. So we don't know what it's going to do for our taxes. I got a quick observation on the revised traffic report. Pages 6 and 7 of the PDF appear to have math errors. The days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the totals are not included, and I think the averages are incorrect. My other comment on the traffic study is that the tables on page 6 and 7 also indicate a start date of October 29th, but the first day reported is October 25th. You can say these are just simple clerical errors, but I say it's careless. And while not questioning the expert's credentials, I am questioning the accuracy of the presentation. It also should be noted that the traffic study was done on a day, including election day, when schools were closed and there was less traffic. But the most important thing I want to say tonight is that it seems to me and many of our neighbors that this entire process is skewed in favor of the applicant. It seems that, at least in the applicant's opinion, we are simply nothing but a bunch of NIMBYs who have no basis to our testimony. We are not against reasonable development, but are strongly opposed to the zone change that will adversely affect our quality of life and likely decrease our property values. Yes, the Haltner heirs have a right to sell and develop their property, but this commission has no obligation to allow this zone change and subsequent special permit. Comment was made during the last public hearing by the applicant that they did not seek out this property, but they were directed to it by the town with the town's blessings. I am not so naive as to think that something like that did not happen. I'm sure it did. But why in the world would someone who works for us, the residents of the neighborhood, bring this type of zone change, and even worse, a possible special permit eliminating the need to access the Berlin Turnpike to destroy our neighborhood? I do feel that the applicant has been given an unfair advantage during this entire process by the town's civil servants. The best example is that these public hearings have been scheduled despite the fact the applicant's zone change paperwork was not complete until last Friday, November 5th, when they finally submitted the list of property owners within the 500 feet of the zone change. Excuse me. The existing zoning is not bad zoning. It is correct zoning. The area is not a zoning island, but rather a zoning buffer for the noise pollution of the turnpike. In closing, you have no choice but to deny this application, or at the very least, leave the public hearing open until the public has time to review the list submitted by the applicant on November 5th and the errors to be corrected in the traffic study. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Next is Mr. Griffith. You unmute yourself.
Thank you. David Griffith, 283 Culver Street. As a land use attorney and former legal advisor to this commission and other zoning commissions in the state of Connecticut, it is particularly concerning that an incomplete application requesting a zone change was placed on this commission's agenda in the first place and then put out to a public hearing. The application was incomplete when filed back on September 2nd of this year and continues to be incomplete, according to the TPZ's requirements. The missing and required information to be provided by the developer is vital for the zone change process. The owners and addresses of the properties within 500 feet in all directions from the zone change boundary is incomplete as of now and was required to be provided prior to placing the request for zone change on the agenda, much less a public hearing. This is of the utmost importance because a protest petition under state and town law is directly dependent on that information which was to be provided to the town in a timely manner and therefore available to those objecting to the zone change. The board must deny the application because vital and important required information is missing. Finally, the expectation is the same level of vetting applies to the developer applicant as you have applied and will apply to Newington residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark? If you could unmute, state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, thank you. Mark Pasacantando, 6 Stagecoach Lane. Good evening. I am encouraged that this evening, at the outset, there were hard data and facts presented and experts who testified around the work they did as a basis to ultimately approve the project. However, as an expert witness myself in securities matters, working on over 1,000 cases, I have come to know that in practice, generally the experts, if they're not independent, which I know came up in a prior call that many of us had hoped for, that at least a opposing expert be proffered, and to put the commission in a, I believe, a better place to make a decision seeing both sides of the ledger. The traffic expert presented a lot of data. I may be the only one, but I had a few minutes to review the data online and the screen came down, and it's a real challenge to not have the time and be afforded the opportunity to look at the data, to attempt to comprehend and interpret the data and ask questions if appropriate. I did witness in this call a number of the commissioners discharging their responsibility. I thought that was terrific, but it did appear to me that there are honest questions around the data, and I would just ask the commission to reconsider affording us the time to digest numbers. That's the traffic study and the topography map that the surveyor proffered. Maybe the last point, if we're limited to just the information from tonight, is I understand that there are a number of proposed projects that have either been approved or are going to be put before various commissions. I know there's a development on Deming Road, the 3333 project. There's some others on Kobe Road, et cetera. And my life experience over the last 60 years has taught me that it's really difficult to analyze anything in business, quite frankly, in life, if a number of stimuli are going to hit us all at once. You know, it's often difficult to see the impact of one project. Here, one real estate development, we're using studies and DOT data, et cetera. That's terrific, but we really don't know. We're doing our best. We're attempting to do our best job in this. But for example, the Deming project, when that comes online, that's going to change the northbound and southbound traffic study. There are a number of different considerations. And in this post-COVID environment, if we are post-COVID or hopefully at the tail end of it, things are going to increase and we have increased activity and we just really don't know the ultimate impact. So I'd ask you to, and as you're thinking about this, I'd ask you to really consider we don't know what we don't know. And there's these other projects I think that will change some of the data and the benchmarks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please remember, we're limited to 3 minutes. Next person would be Clark Castell. If you could state your name and address for the record, I'd appreciate it.
You can unmute yourself, Mr. Costello.
Hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Clark.
Thank you. Clark Castell, 167 Connecticut Avenue. I was interested in Mr. Sweeney's remark, asking you to disregard everything we've talked about so far and limit your decision as to just whether or not a zone change is appropriate, period. The reason I find that interesting is he just spent 45 minutes talking about other things, meaning traffic on Culvert Avenue. I don't even know why this is happening. It's his responsibility. He was the one who brought that up, who decided, or did bring it up, but he decided to address it related to this specific project in the same way as attached to his petition. And I'm going to repeat what I said last time, is a project that he developed in collaboration with the town to have a entrance and exit exclusively on Culver Street, which is specifically prohibited by plan development regulations. And the reason I want to point this out is if a developer is going to present a petition to you that you can't approve without some type of a variance, town staff collaborating with them, suggesting, according to him, that the entry on
You're
Culver.
making a lot of assumptions here, Clark. Please wrap up your comments.
I'm making assumptions.
First of all, we're talking about the zone change, okay? We're really, so you go ahead, go right ahead, finish your comments.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that, oh my goodness, is that if you allow the zone change and you've been able to consider, and they've been able to propose something that you can't approve, it's regulation 319(2)(b)(1). That's not an assumption. What's going to prevent you or the town from doing the same thing, or future members of the Town Planning Zoning Commission and future town members of doing something that's even worse? Now, I understand we're not going to have gas stations on Culver Street, but we could have much bigger developments once the zone change is made. But I'm sorry, I just find the approach of Mr. Sweeney very, very strange. He wants you to consider this absent all this information, which he's provided. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Another time, I hope you'll tell me what assumptions I was making.
Okay, the next person would be Charlene.
Charlene, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Charlene and Anthony Mealy from 124 Apple Hill. And first of all, I just wanted to note that reading the two letters in favor, I know last time we had like 30 emails or something in opposition. I don't know if there are any this week, but I would hope that they will all be read if those other two were read. And in regards to the men or the people, I'm sorry, who wrote those letters in favor, they're not living in this neighborhood anymore. So although their comments were very sentimental and beautiful, they're removed from here. So they have a chance to profit and they don't have to deal with it intruding on their neighborhood. So I thought that was inappropriate as well. I had a few other questions, but I'm going to pass it to my husband so that we don't run out of time. Thanks.
Thank you again, everybody, commissioners, attorney, Alan, et cetera. I did have a
Please state
question.
your full- If you could state your full name, please.
Yeah, Anthony Mealy.
Thank you.
I did have a question for Mr. Hesketh, Scott. He said that he estimated that there would be 500, or he said 500 passenger cars per hour would be added. Where did that number come from? Is that an estimate? Is he just making it up? I'm not sure. Okay, anyways, we could get that answered at some point. And then Attorney Sweeney, and I don't know law that well, but he said that the homeowners or the owners of the property had a fundamental right to make zone changes to their property. I've never been able to make zone changes to my own property without petitioning for those changes, et cetera. And I think my wife covered that. I just think it's fair that if those letters were read into record, that any of the letters against it or emails against the proposal could also be read into the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next person, Anthony.
Is Anthony, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Yoder. I own and reside at 54 Shady Hill Lane. Please enter my comments into the record as opposing petition 4221, as this would drastically change the residential characteristics and quality of our neighborhood, and at the same time would increase hazards to motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians while potentially altering the property values and changing what we've expected as reasonable property use. I do appreciate the TPZ taking time to consider the comments from all the affected residents, as this decision will have tangible and intangible long-term effects on the area in which we've chosen to reside. While the commission has no obligation to grant the requested zone change, it is obligated to affirmatively state the rationale for granting a change and must respect the impact of the current and future residents of Newington. There can be no question that changing the currently heavily wooded land abutting Culver Street, which is currently zoned as R20, to preserve the residential quality of the neighborhood and to serve as a buffer against the commercial use along the Berlin Turnpike, which was created by previous town planners, has to be maintained. Changing the zoning to allow access of the petitioned apartments would irreversibly change our neighborhood. Culver Street is already busy from the existing residents and is frequently used as a cut through from New Britain Avenue and Rocky Hill to the Berlin Turnpike. We have heard that the professional studies which have been done have not and cannot estimate the volume of traffic which would be on Culver Street outside of pandemic conditions. I agree that residents are at a disadvantage by not having access to the traffic study data to review and understand in advance of the meeting. The reality is that traffic will one day return to normal conditions, and making a decision which will drastically change the quality of a neighborhood and could permanently alter residential property values is inappropriate using these assumed data. The recent traffic study does show an assumed traffic volume less than what is deemed appropriate by DOT without knowing the true value from the complex. Existing cars are already known to exceed the speed limit and ignore the stop signs at the intersections of Apple Hill, Little Brook Drive, and Webster Drive. And these areas are already prone to accidents. On the side, the intersection of Deming Road and Lowe's and Walmart is even more dangerous and will become worse with additional traffic. An intentional and substantial increase in traffic will only amplify this. I'm also under the impression the length of Culver Street is reported to have sidewalks, which is true, except for the section between Apple Hill and Rockledge Drive on the side opposite from the proposed entrance to the apartments. The development is not necessary under the 2020 to 2030 Plan of Conservation Development, with 500 units already approved in Newington and an additional 300 nearby adjacent to the Berlin Turnpike in Berlin. In the event the commission makes the unfortunate decision to approve this petition, rapid addition of the units, which may go unfilled, could deteriorate property values and may ultimately be converted to other uses and housing models not currently described. The proponents of this petition state that the owners have a fundamental right to sell and make zoning changes to the property. I submit that while the owners do have a personal and financial interest in the property, that development of it cannot respect their rights while ignoring those of the residents and property owners whose property would involuntarily and irreversibly be damaged by an affirmative decision based on the incomplete application for zone change, denying us access to due rights and comprehensive information on this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And
the next speaker, phone number ending in 196. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Catherine Carl, 54 Cobblestone Court. I'm opposed to petition 4221. First, because the developer submitted an incomplete application which omitted the required list of names and addresses, as well as containing an incorrect map. The public hearing on petition 4221 should be extended 60 days from when the application is finally correctly completed and submitted. Next, the R20 strip of land along Culver Street serves as a buffer between the Berlin Turnpike and all of the residential properties in the area, including mine. The planners who zoned the land as R20 knew that the R20 zoning was needed to maintain the integrity of the residential neighborhoods. There has not been a change in circumstances in the neighborhood which would create a need to change that zoning. The R20 zone keeps commercial development away from where people live. It ensures the safety of the residents. The new report revealed that greater than 85% of the cars on Culver Street travel between 45 and 47 miles per hour, even though the posted speed limit is 30. That's more than 15 miles per hour above the speed limit. At any given point during the day, there are people walking their dogs, jogging, walking for their health, and biking. An increase of 500 car trips, 85% of which are speeding, is not safe for them, nor is it safe for the drivers of those cars on the one lane in each direction roads of Deming and Culver Streets. The TPC Commission has no obligation to grant a zone change from R20 to PD, but you do have an obligation to the citizens of Newington to do what is right to preserve our residential neighborhoods and keep us safe. Please first extend the public hearing by 60 days, then vote no to petition 4221. Thank you.
Next speaker, Igor Bochenikov. You can unmute yourself.
Please state your name and address for the record.
This is Igor Bochenkov, 20 Cobblestone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry. I have a question for petitioners. Why did you propose a development that is clearly in violation of the current zoning regulations?
Are you finished with your comment? We don't answer questions right now. You can make a public statement, though.
Oh, so there is no, we can't pose a direct question to the petitioners?
You've asked a question, and is there anything else that you'd like to state or ask?
I would like to hear an answer.
It's not a back and forth conversation.
Okay,
When
in
we
that
go to-
case, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next
And
speaker, Frank Zacco. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Frank Zacco. I reside at 30 Salem Drive here in Newington. And I'm just going to echo what others were saying, especially in regards to section 13.19.2 subsection B of the regulations, which clearly calls for the conditions of a PD to have direct access to the Berwyn Turnpike or indirect access through one road. This development is going to back up to Costello Drive. And if they need indirect or direct access through the PD zone, they can use their ingress and egress through that road and leave Culver Street zoned R20, which will give us the buffer that our fathers wanted to put in place to protect people walking up and down Culver, driving up and down Culver, having to listen to the Berwyn Turnpike noise. So again, section 3.19.2.b clearly says that they need direct or indirect access, which they do not have from Culver. So I think that the commission needs to stick to their guns on that rule and deny this. And the reality of it is, these people are professionals, which there's no doubt in my mind that they are. How are they allowed to turn in an incomplete application? And I know that it's only fair to give them 60 days from the day they turn into a complete application, but I feel like that was an attempt to take the wind out of our sails, because they know the longer these fights go on, the less people are going to be interested because it's just tiring and they get frustrated with it. So part of me says they turned in an incomplete application, just deny it. Thank you.
Next speaker, Kritzman. You can unmute yourself.
We are Jan and Harold Kritzman, 91 Tremont Street. Good evening, members of the Newington TPZ, AR Builders, all the way from Pittsburgh, PA, your financial consultants, your environmental prognosticators, and your emotional support group. We are opposed to petition 42-21. TPZ, please vote to deny of zone change for the farmland on Culver Street from R20 to PD would open a can of worms in the future and probably ultimately turn a bucolic pastoral farm area into a high-density, heavily trafficked and commercial project. I foresee such a zone change leading to a burden on the hundreds of decades-long time neighboring homeowners who did not, in their wildest imagination, sign up for this. TPZ members, you are the stewards of land development for any vacant parcels in Newington. Your obligation is to listen carefully to the neighborhood residents who would be harshly affected night and day by the consequences of this petition for this zone change in their immediate neighborhood. TPZ, you've been entrusted with the enormous responsibility of preserving the basic nature and environment of this neighborhood in Newington and any neighborhood in Newington. Please give thoughtful consideration to the ramifications of what PD zoning would bring to the Culver Street neighborhood and vote wisely to deny this petition. Instead, vote to preserve this land parcel for its best possible use, low density residential housing. Interestingly enough, in today's Rare Reminder Weekly newspaper, I saw an advertisement posted by the Newington Republican Town Committee. Let me quote, "Thank you to the voters of Newington for your support. We will work hard to accomplish much to make our community the best it possibly can be." Well said, Republican team. I sincerely believe that you members of the TPZ are of the same heart and mind as our elected town officials. Don't we all want, quote, our community to be the best it can possibly be? Quote, thank you for providing this forum to listen to us concerned citizens.
Okay, next.
Doug Sweeney, can unmute yourself.
There you go. I got a few questions. I wrote an email already in opposition. 10 Littlebrook Drive. A couple of things I just want to note. The agenda was posted just a few days ago. We really didn't have time to look at anything else. I think someone said something else about the digesting too. So I would think maybe increase the time a little bit just to give us time to look at it. Then the second thing was I'm right in the corner here. I see people walking all the time, coming down Culver onto Littlebrook. There's a little loop there. I got it in my note. It's about 2.5 miles. They walk up around and everything, and they have to come down Culver already. The sidewalks, there's about approximately 2.2 miles without a sidewalk. So they got to walk on a street, and they're going already 45 to 47. Anyways, that's I don't walk that much. The third thing was the protest was missing from the initial application. I think we need to at least, you guys need to extend it for 60 days, or maybe just deny it now. It's just it's a whole complete application. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Matt Rossi, can unmute yourself.
Good night. How is everyone? Matt Rossi, 17 Franklin Circle. I want to thank the commission for allowing this to continue on. I think it's vital to getting the right answer for this area. I am going to keep it concise. I am not going to do too much repeating of what was said last time to honor and respect your time as you asked Commissioner Payne.
Thank you.
But I do have a few questions with the traffic study. I did notice where the strips were placed. There's a lot of estimation that has to go on, and where those strips were placed, they do not record any of the traffic leaving Rockledge, Cortland, or Apple Hill, turning left going towards Littlebrook. It also does not take into effect the traffic coming out of Cobblestone that goes and turns towards Littlebrook as well. I think that's vital. There's a lot of people that come out of those neighborhoods, and that should be something that should be thought about as well. We talk about the traffic here. despite what some things were said in rebuttal last meeting, whether Mr. Bongiovanni was talking about my comment about having Costello extend into the PD area, it was missaid as running through. That is not what I had stated. I did go back and listen, and I could see where that might have been mistaken. So I'm going to clarify that. As others have said, the Costello Road would be the natural entrance and exit for this PD development. I am also wondering why a traffic study has not been done on that road as well. As for the owners of the property as well as AR, at no time by you saying no to this zone change, which you should, because of is it three? I think it's like 319.2.b, as well as the fact that the original planners intentionally made this a buffer zone. They can still build their development on the PD zone, and they also have the option to develop smaller single-family Cape-style homes or ranches. I have gotten multiple things in my email, in my mailbox from real estate agents. One, Josh something or other, who matter of fact just sold a house within less than a week here. That was a ranch-style house, saying that it's in high demand. That is something that can be taken. The developers can make money. The owners of the land can make money. The grand list grows. The traffic exits out onto Costello Road. Culver Street is not impacted. And I believe that is all that I have to share with you. And again, I appreciate all of your time with this. And I hope that you choose to either keep this open, because right now something just doesn't smell right in Denmark, or in this case, Newington, with the way some of these important things have been left out. This is new information that I just heard about in this meeting. And again, thank you for your time, and hopefully you will vote no on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. And Frank, did he already speak?
Mr. Zacco already spoke.
Okay, it's all.
Do you want to?
No.
Ms. Brown?
Ms. Brown?
Elizabeth Brown, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Brendan Brown, 24 Tropic Circle here in Newington. I guess a couple of things to note, and I feel for the owners of RD3 and their memories and history with the property in town, but frankly, they don't live here. They have no impact from this change if it goes forward. So frankly, their views are irrelevant. Second, with an incomplete application submitted by the applicant, why are we even here? There's nothing here to do except for the council to deny this application. Thank you.
Okay. We have one more.
Yes, we do. The email address ending in iu.edu. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, my name is Abdallah Al-Sakri, and I live at 10 Ledgecrest Drive in Newington. I wanted to echo some of the comments that were just mentioned, I think, by Mr. Rossi. I don't believe anyone in this town is opposed to the development of this property. I know the applicant and his representatives have made multiple comments in the past about respecting the landowner's rights, and I don't believe anyone in this town is opposed to the landowner exercising their lawful rights to develop on that land. I think what we're opposed to is changing the zoning of this property. I for one would happily love to see some single family homes in that area. Me personally, being someone who's lived in this town forever and looking to expand and grow into a larger house, I would even look to be a consumer of properties in that area. I don't think that anyone here is doesn't want to see them being able to do what they want with their land. I think what we're opposed to is changing the zoning of that land, because it would diametrically change the build out and layout of that property in that area. As many have mentioned, the original zoners, when they zoned that property, built it as a buffer. Removing that buffer would mean we're directly, neighborhoods and houses are directly right on the commercial zoning. So those are the comments I had for today. I just wanted to make sure that we oppose this, we change this, we're not, and if we do oppose this, we're not preventing the landowners from doing what they want with the property. We're just asking them to do it within the regulations that the town has set forth for that property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could you restate your address for the record, please?
Sure. It is 10 Ledgecrest Drive.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, next we have Mike on the phone.
You gotta mute yourself, Mike.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mike Alter, I'm 147 Candlewood Drive. In the interest of fairness, I believe several other callers have brought this up already, but there were more than 30 letters and emails at the previous hearing that were never read into the record. And I think since the applicant's letters were read tonight, I think it is totally justified that all those letters and emails be read into the record tonight. Can I formally request that, please?
I will address that, Mike.
Thank you. That's all for now. Thank you.
Next.
Barbara Zacco. Mute yourself.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Barbara Zacco, and I am at 30 Salem Drive in Newington, within the 500 feet of the requested zone change. Couple of things. I mean, first and foremost, again, it is repetitive, but I feel the developer and their lawyers are pretty repetitive as well. The zone change paperwork is incomplete. We were on the last meeting told that we weren't experts. We didn't understand this process. So I would just like to point out that if they are experts, they should understand the process, and they should also be, uber aware of what the local rules and regulations are. So there's that. The traffic study is of a huge concern to me. First of all, I agree that we are in a dynamic and changing time. We don't have accurate and up-to-date information. We are still in the middle of a global pandemic. Year over year, there was a 20% increase, and we don't know what the future is going to bring. I know that people feel that people are going to be back in their homes and nobody's going back into the office. But I work in corporate America, and that's just not the reality. There is absolutely a transition back to the office and back to work. The traffic study also showed that the average, or 85% or more of the people are going between 45 and 47 miles per hour. There was an indication in the study that the sight lines in that area, that speed is actually okay because it would allow up to 50 miles an hour. I don't know what map somebody's looking at, but they have never been on Culver Street, tried to navigate the three-way stop where you can't tell where cars are coming from on Deming. Are they going towards Walmart? Are they going towards Culver? What are they doing? They have clearly not gone up and down those hills where sightlines, there is no way any reasonable person who has had their driver's license for more than 5 years would say that 50 miles an hour is appropriate. That is ridiculous, and it is unsafe. I don't care what the map and the program say. I am somebody who lives in this town with my 10-year-old daughter who rides the school bus on that street. That is completely and totally unacceptable. And if that is the case, I want somebody from Newington, not a developer's person, to tell me that. I want Newington conduct a study and tell me that 50 miles an hour is acceptable in those sight lines with those traffic lines. I also don't understand, and a few of us have brought this up, and I don't think we've ever gotten the answer. And if it's not right now, that's okay. But there does need to be answer as if we do transition that area to PD, how does that meet their zoning requirements? They would not have direct access to the Berlin Turnpike. If they develop and go onto Costello Road and get rid of the pond and push things back, they could still accommodate the same thing without any zoning change and without interfering with the buffer zone. So I do think that's an important point that's been brought up multiple times, and I don't think any of us have a good answer on that. Does that mean that the PD zoning change would occur and then there would be an exception to that rule? Or are you then going to change the PD zoning rules to say that you can have a multiple step process to the Berlin Turnpike? So I think that's a really important question that needs to be brought up. And I also think that the traffic
Please wrap up your
study,
comment.
okay, the traffic study was incomplete and inaccurate. And at a very minimum, we need more time. But actually, I believe that this whole process should start from scratch, and the developer should take the accountability to do things right from the beginning. Thank you.
Okay. And
No one else currently has their hand up, Mr. Chairman.
at this time, maybe Renata, Eric, you have a few emails that you'd like to read into the minutes, the new ones, and then if Renata could address the question on minutes being read into the meeting. All the commissioners have received all the minutes up to date. And we've all read them. I've read them. I believe my other commissioners have read everything. And there's a few new ones that our town planner will address now.
So yes, Mr. Chair, I'll just give a little rundown on what was sent and posted so far as public testimony. We had collected, I believe, one letter and one email prior to the first meeting of October 13th and submitted that into the record that night. For October 27, we have received a voluminous correspondence that was not read into the record. However, it was shared with the commission, with the applicant, and was posted online, I believe the day following the 27th. Since then, we have received a number of emails that were all sent over to the commission and to the applicant either yesterday morning or today at about 1 p.m. And Eric and I will read what we have received in my office post 1 or 1:30 p.m. And I will start with the first one and maybe read first two, and then I will ask Eric to continue. So the first email is from Frank Zocca, and it reads, good afternoon. I continue to be against the zoning change application number 4221. My name is Frank Zocca. I live at 30 Salem Drive, Newington. I have a family that will be directly impacted by the zoning change, including school capacity, increase in traffic, and speeding that would come with changes to PD zoning on Culver Street. The new traffic reports show an uptick in traffic, especially midday and evening, and it appears that there are math issues in the report. I am urging the zoning committee to review this report in detail and do their own math. The average is 20% higher than what the math shows. What is the reason for this? Is there a math error or some modification of math? It also shows that the pandemic has changed traffic patterns. We are still in a reduced traffic state and really do not understand the long-term impacts. So making the zoning change at this time is negligent. We don't know what the next couple of years will bring, and we need to pause, to better understand the impact before we transition neighborhood traffic to commercial traffic. It appears there are also issues with the application submitted by the developer, and the needed information was not submitted until November 5th, and at that point was incorrect. The developer stated last time they are professionals and do this all the time. If that is the case and the application error was still made, are they negligent? Which questions their expertise in understanding and adhering to local requirements? Or did they intentionally misled the public? I would also assume that their error would automatically reset the clock until they submit corrected landowner information. I would ask the zoning committee provide an update on tonight's agenda or tonight's call. I'm still very unclear why changing the zoning is even needed and how it benefits anyone but the developer. There is space to build on the currently PD zoned land. Just get rid on one of the ponds and they have room to build. With this approach, they can divert traffic to Costello, which meets the direct access to Berlin Turnpike requirement. Culver doesn't have direct access, so even with the zoning change, it should not be allowed. I certainly get the developer wanting Culver Street, as that helps their marketing to dump traffic into a neighborhood, but enough concerns have been raised. Traffic entrance is in the neighborhood, but the type of development is not consistent with single-family units. The reality may not meet their marketing needs, but it does meet the zoning of the land they're choosing to develop on. So to be clear, this is a marketing ask for developer, of a developer. I continue to be concerned about traffic safety. The new reports states that cars are already traveling 15 plus miles above the posted speed limit, which is posted at 30 mile at 85% or more are currently traveling 45 to 47. Changing to a PD zoning can increase the current reality of 45 to 47 miles per hour. Sightlines in reality are not the same as the map. There is a three-way stop that if anyone has ever driven through, understand it is very hard to determine what way traffic is going. Are the cars going to Culver, Deming? There are several hills and traffic outlets to Culver that impact sightlines. Cambridge Drive, Apple Hill, and Cobblestone, other condos empty on Culver now with hills and bends that absolutely do not support traffic up to 50 miles an hour. That statement shows an absolute lack of understanding of the reality of what is it like to travel on Culver. I live in this neighborhood. I walk on the sidewalks and cross the streets. My daughter's school buses drives on Culver. There is no way that 50 miles an hour is acceptable. There is no way that adding traffic to a street where Newington struggles to enforce traffic laws as it stands today is best for the neighborhood and Newington overall. This is a community that is very close to commercial development. We all knew that when we bought here, but it is community and should remain zoned and such. We already hear the traffic noise. We already have more traffic than planned because of the diversion from the Berlin Turnpike and cut-throughs from Rocky Hill and points north. We already have plenty of housing diversity. We already have limited green space. We already have more housing going up in Newington, our neighborhood and surrounding towns. There is not a housing shortage. There is not a need for housing diversity. We have plenty. There is no need to change the zoning for any other reason than to make it easier for a developer. If they want to be part of our community, then build on the land that currently is zoned to do so. Changing the zoning to commercial is unnecessary and poses a risk to the community and our children's safety. Starting 50 miles an hour is acceptable on a road, shows an indifference to safety. Stating 50 miles an hour is acceptable on the road shows an indifference to safety. The developer has shown they do not understand our community or even our rules for zoning and development. They're not experts. They're developers that have their way and don't follow local rules if they do not have to, because it interferes with their profits. I'm concerned that the past few weeks have shown the push to make decisions on an inaccurate and incomplete information. I'm asking you to reject the application, and if they are serious, they can come back and follow the rules or respect the decisions already made and built where they are permitted to. Next email that I'm going to read is from Dale Grubben. My name is, okay, so now my light is off. There you go. My name is Dale Grubben and I live at 277 Culver Street. I'm very much against the zoning change as it will lead to much more traffic on our street, which already sees an influx of cars from surrounding towns. Culver Street is all residential and I would like to see it remain that way. change in zoning will negatively impact quality of life in our neighborhood as well as Newington. Next email is from Susan Hutchinson. I am opposed to petition 4221. Please read my remarks into record. I'm opposed to changing the R20 buffer, which protects my neighborhood from Berlin Turnpike commercial area. This development has not shown that it will produce appreciable jobs or any goods or services. There is no basis for a developer to contend this project will provide a variety of housing options, as this should not be a factor in moving forward. Thank you, Susan Hutchinson, 21 Barnhill Lane. And the last that I will read is from Louis Graben. Dear Renata Bertati, please accept this opposition to zone change on Culver Street. The proposed apartment complex is 80% in the current commercial zone. It is apparent that the entire 100% can be located in this existing zone. Leave the residential zone unchanged on Culver Street. Please save our neighborhood and provide a healthy environment. We are all aware the already hazardous traffic condition on Culver Street. Please do not add to the problem. Thank you, Louis Graben, 277 Culver Street. And Eric, if you can please read the email from Douglas Sweeney.
Yes, I will. My name is Douglas Sweeney, 10 Littlebrook Drive. I'm opposed to application 4221, Culver Street Apartments zoning change. And I would like this email read into the record at the November 10th, 2021 public hearing. 1, the developer argues that the land along Culver Street that was zoned R20 was left that way to be rezoned later. That doesn't make sense to me. Why wasn't it zoned PD to begin with? Common sense says that the builder of the houses in the residential area wanted a buffer between the residential neighborhood and the Berlin Turnpike. 2, the developer states the zone change to PD is consistent with the 2020-2030 Plan of Conservation and Development, POCD, because it will diversify its Newington's housing needs. According to NMHC.org, National Multifamily Housing Council, renters tend to be younger. See the addendum. It doesn't look like the apartments will meet the housing needs of an aging population. This is a goal of the POCD. See the addendum. Another goal of the POCD, the developer argues, is development within the Berlin Turnpike Special Opportunity Zone Y, which it claims includes portions of the R20 zone along Culver Street. A vast majority of the rezoning is outside the Special Opportunity Zone, Berlin Turnpike. This rezoning will cause the Special Opportunity Zone to increase. This will set a precedent when you stop it. 4, the developer claims its project will meet economic goals of the POCD, providing jobs, goods, and services, adding tax revenue to support local services and improve the attractiveness of Newington both economically and physically. Basically, single-family houses create more local income, more taxes, and more jobs during construction and recurring than apartments. The only downside I can see is that it takes up more land, though Newington has about 7% vacant land. See addendum. Lastly, the developer contends its project will provide housing options for a variety of household types, sizes, ages, abilities, tenures, and income groups. But it admits it won't provide those details until after the R20 to PD zone change is approved. That is ludicrous and unacceptable. It cannot base its approval now on mystery information to be supplied later. This cannot be a reason for approval when there is no basis. 6, walking loop. Guests walk it, and I see a couple of groups a day from my house. Only once I haven't paid attention, though it's probably more. So for about 2/10, people have to be on the street when they walk on Culver. Sidewalks should be constructed and finished on Culver Street. Currently a low priority for sidewalks on Culver Street. See addendum for loop. 7, I urge the TPZ to extend the public hearing for at least 60 days because regulations allows for a protest to a zone change. Thank you. The addendum. Pointing to item 2, right from the POCD, page 53. Future housing needs in Newington are likely to include continuing to diversify the housing portfolio, including upscale housing, providing for housing that is more affordable for younger and older age groups, and meeting the housing needs of an aging population. Item 4, according to nmhc.org, National Multifamily Housing Council, renters tend to be younger, under 30 years of age, 39%. Age group 30 to 44, 23%. Ages 45 to 64, 19%. Ages 65 plus, 9%. He cites a website as well. Then he has an item from the National Association of Home Builders. Single-family construction. The estimated one-year impacts of building 100 single-family homes in a typical local area include $28.7 million in local income, $3.6 million in taxes and other revenue for local governments, and 394 local jobs. The additional annual recurring impacts of building 100 single-family homes in a typical local area include $4.1 million in local income, $1 million in taxes and other revenue for local governments, and 69 local jobs. Multifamily construction. The estimated one-year impacts of building 100 rental apartments in a typical local area include $11.7 million in local income, $2.2 million in taxes and other revenue for local governments, and 161 local jobs. The additional annually recurring impacts of building 100 rental apartments in typical local area include $2.6 million in local income, $503,000 in taxes and other revenues for local government, and 44 local jobs. From the POCD, page 14, vacant land, land that is not developed or committed. Vacant acres, 580 or 7%. Total acres, 8,383. Item 6, info from email about sidewalk links, signed by Gary J. Furstenberg, PE, Town Engineer. Sidewalks are shown in the 2020-2030 Plan of Conservation Development prepared by the Town Planner, page 79. Length of culvert is less than 7/10 of a mile. Sidewalks are not continuous on Culver Street. Sidewalk length on Culver Street is about 2,650 feet, a half a mile. Little Brook Drive, sidewalk to Stagecoach Lane. Sidewalk to Candlewick Drive, no sidewalk. To Cambridge, partial sidewalk. To Culver, partial sidewalk. Back to Little Brook Drive, sidewalk. That's the end.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have Michelle Griffith. You can unmute and you have 3 minutes if you'd like to say something.
Yes, hello, my name is Michelle Griffith. I live at 283 Culver Street. I've lived in Newington for 48 years. I've lived on Culver Street for 37 years. After listening to all of my neighbors, I am not going to repeat everything. I was going to make many of the same comments, so I'm not going to read what I wrote, and I'm going to just talk really quickly from my heart. I've lived, as I said, I've lived here a long time, but I have to say in the last couple of months, I have met many new neighbors and have been so impressed with their attention to the development of our community and their knowledge. And I've learned something too, that we as neighbors, we have to do our research. We have to be aware of what's happening in our town. We have to talk to our neighbors as well and help each other and learn from each other, because we're going to get very limited information from the town, just what is necessary. And so I guess I'm going to say that, first of all, I am opposed to the zoning change. This just can't happen. If this is a residential neighborhood, we care about the appropriate development of this neighborhood. Somebody said 26 acres, only 26 acres, or they've given us so many other acreage as a gift. 26 acres is a lot of land. That's a lot of land. And the other thing is 500 cars per hour. I live on Culver Street, And think about it. Really think about 500 cars going by in 1 hour. That's a lot of cars, and it's going to be a lot more. And to have people say the posted speed limit on our street is 30 miles an hour. Keep that in mind. So this traffic study said there were cars going approximately 45 miles per hour and 47 miles per hour. That means that there were more. They were going at a higher speed. It's not appropriate for this street. It is a residential community. And again, this is going to have a very big impact on our neighborhood. And I want to just, I guess, thank my neighbors for their work and interest. And I guess the other thing I forgot to mention is that I was one of the neighbors that went around collecting signatures in the area of 500 yards or less in opposition so that these residents could protest. And whoever was home in the short amount of time that we had, which was just about 2 days to get signatures, everyone who answered their door signed my protest. But there were many, I don't have the number, whose door I rang or knocked on and were not home. And that was all the time I had, was 2 days. And so we need to remember that as well. But thank you. And I hope that the members of this board will care about our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more. Mohammed, you have 3 minutes.
You can unmute yourself.
Muhammad Al-Ramahi, 14 Coachman Lane, Newington. I'm opposed to application 4221 for the following reasons. I just want to point out that the recent traffic report dated November 8th shows that the level of service had fallen to C compared to July 2nd, which was a level of service B at the intersection of Culver and Deming Street. And the other thing I have that the automated traffic device strips at Culver Street, they sit further away from Cambridge Drive and Cambridge Complex entrance on Culver Street. So if we are getting the level of service at that intersection, why we set them all the way far to Apple Hill and eliminate all the traffic on Cambridge Complex and approaching Deming Street? Ultimately, the results is less volume than reality, and these strips should be moved to at least at Cambridge Driveway so we can counter all these movement from Cambridge and Cambridge Street. The other thing, I have a question for Scott. When he got the side distance, did he take into consideration the geometry of the roadway? Because the geometry of the roadway make a big difference. If you have hills, you're not going to have the same size distance when you have like straight forward without any bends, roadway without any bends. And just for the record, because the lawyer for the applicant last time said that, but don't quote me, that we should have a professionals. I'm a civil engineer and a licensed professional engineer with the state of Connecticut. So this is like some part of my job. Yeah, probably I'm not a professional in this, but at least I have some knowledge. So, but I would like Scott to answer my question when he have the chance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go to the applicant for rebuttal. We have one more hand.
Yes, phone number ending in 070.
Have they spoken before?
I'm not positive. I don't remember the other phone number that spoke.
Last one was 196.
Okay.
Okay, go right ahead, please.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Alton Drive, and no, I did not speak prior to this. I'm just making a few notations in my head to ask questions tomorrow, perhaps with some other people, but just an observation. I'm just curious as to who from the town, other than the town planner and maybe assistant town planner, was involved with the conversations with the developer. I'd also wonder if taxes can be considered one way or the other in your decision. And the third thing was, I appreciate their donation of the land. I'm just curious whether or not that land was developable or not, or it was just a donation so that it would be off of their tax roll and onto the responsibility of the town of Newington. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, okay. I would like to go to the rebuttal for applicant now. Alan, if you have any of these questions you'd like to address.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be doing the rebuttal and I'll be very
Okay.
brief.
Thank you.
Thank you again for the time this evening. I just want to be very brief. Some of the questions I think have been answered already, and I'm not going to address, but I will address several comments from the public. Specifically, Mr. Horrigan addressed the issue of tax impact. Tax impact in and of itself is not something you can consider in the analysis. However, the suggestion that single family housing in any way would be a positive tax benefit for the town is, I think, ridiculous. And I think anybody with any background in planning knows that single family housing has the worst ratio in terms of services to tax benefit. There was also a comment that this process has somehow been procedurally unfair to the neighbors. I can tell you, I've been doing this type of work for over 20 years. I've never seen a public hearing process where opponents to a project get an additional minute than proponents. I've never seen a process where the opponents of a project get a rebuttal after the applicant's rebuttal. So if anything, this process is weighted heavily toward the neighbors and to the opponents of the project. And just the amount of time that's been given over the last 3 evenings, I think shows the commitment to the commission to listening to the neighbors. So I reject, wholly the idea that there's any unfair advantage. I also want to address the issue of the completeness of the application. Our application was absolutely materially complete. With the advent of GIS here in the town of Newington, as I understand, talking with Alan and talking with your planner, it has become the normal operating procedure of the Office of Planning and Development and Zoning to actually notify neighbors and to generate those lists from the GIS and assessor's records. We did not submit that list initially because that is not the operating procedure of the town at this time. However, when this issue came up, we absolutely did so, and it was very easy. Mr. Bongiovanni printed out the assessor's cards and submitted them. They are in the record now, and the application is technically fully complete at this time. I would also note that your planner had to actually do the same analysis when she looked at the initial protest petition. And that is the process that I understand that Newington has adopted since the advent of GIS. It's very common that most towns do that. Most towns that I work in now, the town will give you the list of abutters, and some towns like Newington will actually do the notices for you as well. So that is just literally throwing the kitchen sink, everything and the kitchen sink at the wall and seeing what sticks. Mr. Pasasando commented that he didn't feel like he had enough time to review. We've had 3 public hearings on this matter. The information that we presented tonight was in specific request of commissioners, Commissioner Payne, Chairman Payne, and Commissioner Sobieski. We did that additional counts for 2021 and then adjusted them specifically to answer the requests of commissioners. And it would be fundamentally unfair for us to be further delayed simply because we wanted to be responsive to those requests. I do want to also address the comments of Mr. Castelli. We certainly had no obligation to submit a concept plan with our zone change application. It was recommended that we do that in talking with your staff. It is the tradition of this commission to, at least as I understand it, to have an idea of why somebody might want a zone change. And that's very common throughout the state of Connecticut, that commissions want to know why people are coming in and seeking zone changes. It's not unusual whatsoever. We don't have any obligation to submit it as a matter of law, but we did in the issue of transparency. And so my comments were just reminding you what your legal obligations are, despite the fact that there was been a lot of talking. Quite frankly, the majority of the talk in the 3 hearings had nothing to do with the zone change, in my opinion. I also disagree with Mr. Castelli's representations that there was anything unprofessional or inappropriate about Ms. Bertati or Mr. Hinckley's work on this project with us. Town has been fully professional with us the entire time. and has given us direction and has given us understanding of what the commission expects and nothing less and nothing more. We also, and I want to make sure I put this in the record, we 100% disagree with the interpretation of many of the speakers of the direct access requirements of section 319B21. There is nothing in that section that requires a direct vehicular driveway connection to the Berlin Turnpike or to a road connecting to the Berlin Turnpike. We believe we can comply with that at the proper time. This is not the proper time to even discuss it. It's irrelevant to the zone change application, but we disagree with a very narrow interpretation that's been put forward by neighbors. Ms. Carl asked for an extension. Several speakers spoke about that. The public hearing opened two meetings ago. We would have to grant an extension. We have no intention of granting an extension. This hearing has gone on for 3 meetings. It's been plenty of time to fill the record. We will be asking you to close the hearing tonight. Whether you want to take action on the application or not, it's up to you. You have statutory timeframes to do that, but the hearing will close tonight. We're not giving any extensions. And then finally, there was some discussion about speed on Culver Street. Certainly, there are people who go too fast on Culver Street. That is a police matter. It's not a zoning issue. It's certainly not an issue for Mr. Drachenberg or the owners or the applicant. We certainly believe people should slow down. The point that was made by Mr. Hesketh in his testimony was we've designed our project. We have appropriate sightlines with the geometric analysis that was mentioned to show that our sightlines are good even if people are speeding. I hope they don't, and I hope the police crack down on people who are going too fast, because they shouldn't be going too fast on that road. Also, it was misstated many times in some of the public comment. Our project does not put 500 cars on the road. It's 500 from the total amount of cars on that road. And I think that needs to be clarified as well. Finally, the letters that I wrote in were not letters from neighbors. They're letters from the owners of the property who have a different legal standing in this application. They are a directly aggrieved party. They are the owners of the property. So, Ms. Halter's attorney had to speak because Ms. Halter is not in an ability to speak at this meeting. So that's a very different thing than reading other letters in. And then finally, I just want to thank the commission again. I just want to close tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Jason Kambitsis. Appreciate your attention, your patience, but Mr. Kambitsis just wants to say a few words of thanks as well.
Thanks, Bill. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Jason Kambitsis from AR Building. I'll make it very brief. Bill said everything. I just wanted to make sure and reiterate, there was a lot of conversation throughout these public hearings as though there was somewhat subversive or something else occurring here. There isn't. We're real estate developers. We're here to develop property. We don't go around channels. We don't do anything like that. Concept that somehow the town fed us a property is totally and completely inappropriate. Found this property for sale. We made a deal on the property and we're working on it. I just want to really hit that home in the sense that it says that there's something wrong with the staff or something wrong with the TPZ. As we all know, this is an above board project. We've done everything we're supposed to do and have not done anything subversive. I want to thank you for your time. We feel as though this is a very good project. Something only adds value to the community regarding the use of services and the amount of money that it puts into it, although irrelevant to this proceeding, something that I would like to say. And when we talk about housing choice, housing diversity, there was comments made as it doesn't bring that. It truly does. We hit all the demographic backgrounds from young to old, and people want to be there as an aspirational choice. People want to choose to stay in their community, and we give them that choice by moving into our apartments as opposed to maintaining a home. And also, I just want to say, if this moves forward, we talk about density and everything that goes along with this. Our density for the apartments fall in line with the density at Cambridge and also Apple Hill. This is not a completely project that's completely out of the blue. These uses do exist within this community and within sight distance of this property, and it falls within the fabric of the community as the other apartment communities do in Culver Street. So I want to thank you for your time. I know it's been long and I know we've gone through a lot, but I think what we've presented here tonight is above and beyond and shows our dedication to this project and how we expect to move forward by going back and forth, answering questions, and give you the answers you've asked for. So I appreciate your time tonight, and here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I just want to double check with our town planner to see if she has anything that she wants to add on at this point.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have quite a few things to
Thank you.
actually add to here, including my report to you. And I apologize, it's not going to be like a 2-second thing. So first I'll start by addressing a couple of direct questions. One of the questions that was just posed was who was part of the team that met with applicants in their preparation of this application. We at Town of Newington have a development team that consists of building department, fire marshal's office, engineering department, myself and Eric. Normally, when this is a normal part of the process, and we do this probably like twice a week with different groups that are preparing applications, we meet and comment on their projects. As was stated, we issue directions, we explain what we believe the commission's expectations could be, and they take it from there, but it is applicant's project to design and propose. It's not, something that we do. The second thing that I wanted to address was the notion of, we received in this office, we received 2 protest petitions. The point of protest petitions is that in order for the commission to be required to act by 2/3 vote, they have to do that when a petition consisting of 20% of land owned by the owners who are signing that petition are signatories of that petition. So the very first one that we received, we sent to the commission a map, we verified that one, and it contained 5.9% of land. So that one alone did not meet the standards necessary to require a 2/3 vote. The second petition we received this morning, we weren't able to fully verify it. However, our preliminary review indicates that 13.4% of land is owned by people who signed that petition. Assuming that there are no duplications, which frankly, there are likely to be names that are duplicated here, these 2 petitions added together still do not comprise sufficient amount to meet the 20% requirement. But the whole point of the protest petition, what it does, when it meets 20%, it's demand a certain amount of votes for the motion to pass. It doesn't put the application on hold. It does not restart the statutory clock. It doesn't do any of those things. And the last thing that I wanted to also mention is there was a couple of mentions of previous planners or previous zoners zoning this area R20 to buffer something. Under section 1, purpose and intent of our zoning regulations, there is a lot of things that are listed here, things such as the regulation is adopted under general statute for the following purposes: to promote and protect the public health, safety, welfares of inhabitants of Newington, Connecticut, and the public generally, to regulate the height, number of stories, and size of buildings and other structure, the percentage of the area of a lot that may be occupied, size of the arts, courts, and other open spaces. There is a lot more, which I will not read, but this purpose and intent of the zoning regulation is extrapolated essentially from the zoning enabling statute. None of this in purpose and intent mentioned anything regarding buffering. And quite frankly, in my experience as a planner, I have not seen zoning designations used to buffer things. Landscaping requirements within zoning regulations are used to buffer things. So with that, I think I'm going to turn on to my report, which, you know, when commission acts on the zoning map amendment, you act in your legislative capacity. You have a broad discretion, and there are two things that you must do. You must consider plan of conservation and development, and you must on the record state whether you find the proposal to be consistent with the POCD or not consistent with POCD. If you choose to approve the zone change, the second thing you must do is state on the record reasons for your approval. Now I will talk about what I think is appropriate for you to consider when you look at this. So starting with the POCD, as you can see on the screen that James is playing, we had issued a memo in which we, the staff, have looked at certain sections of the POCD that we found this zone change application was consistent with. We are talking about section that talks about diversifying the housing stock. One of the overall goals is to provide housing options for a variety of household types, sizes, ages, tenures, and income groups. Ages under the overall housing diversification. So I think, you know, sometimes we look at this as diversification in a sense of single family versus multifamily. But there are other sections of the POCD that talk about diversification by age. So for example, younger age groups we have to provide housing options for younger age groups, for older persons who experience divorce, job loss, would benefit from having housing options, people with special needs, you know, other kind of housing options than single family homes. The second section that we referenced in the memo talks about the opportunity sites, and that opportunity site that was marked on our map as opportunity site Y. And the last one that I will talk about is from the economic development chapter. And in particular, I kind of want to talk a little bit about this notion on whether or not you should consider taxes. In our POCD, we say that we want to continue to promote appropriate economic development in Newington in order to grow the grand list and provide net tax revenue. It is appropriate to consider taxes in that sense. However, I do want to also say that somehow thinking that renters do not pay taxes, in my opinion, is very wrong. Renters pay taxes, it's included in their rent. Developers and apartment owners do not cover somebody else's taxes out of goodness of their own heart. So this kind of development will bring taxes. Now, those taxes that are brought are leveraged with services that the town provide, and there was some talk about that as well. If we think about services, the roads and infrastructure maintenance is supported on roads that are well traveled. If you have a very long road with 2 houses on it, the town is less likely to come and fix it because the people paying taxes for that entire long road are 2 homes. When you have greater density, you have greater amount of taxes that are deposited there. So it's appropriate to then pay a little bit closer attention to infrastructure in those kind of areas. There was talking about schools. There is ample evidence that apartments, and you as a commission have heard that report with 333 Berlin Turnpike, apartments generally do not produce many children. As a matter of fact, single family homes do. The police and fire service, when I asked the chief of police and provided them 3 different apartment and condo developments to see what number of calls they generated. And then we divided number of units by, we multiplied number of units by 1.5 person, which, you know, most 1 and 2 bedroom apartment or condos will have 1.5 person living in them. We also included 1 residential street in, actually it's a street that mayor lives on. So it's a street in a nice area, and divided that street number of houses multiplied by 2.5 people, because in houses you have more people. And the number of calls per person are comparable. So normally, if you have more denser area, you will have higher number of calls. However, when you divide these calls per number of person, these are comparable things. Dense areas by themselves do not mean necessarily a higher crime rate, is, I guess, what I'm trying to note here. The second thing that I would like to address is the comprehensive plan. So your zoning regulations, your zoning map. And when we look at that, we look at what is appropriate, what is currently allowed under current zoning, and what is allowed under proposed zoning. How are things controlled? What's allowed by right? What's allowed by special permit? My office has provided a list of permitted uses in both zoning district, R20 and PD. And then I asked Commission at the previous meeting to think that's not the right slide, James. Actually, Eric, can you please make sure that you share the correct slide here? So while they're working on that, Eric, but while they're working on replacement of the slide, I'll just go into it. And then the other thing that's appropriate to consider, absolutely appropriate to consider, would be traffic. Because once you zone something, what you have essentially said is that that area can support development in that zoning district. So under current zoning, you know, one of the reasons that I initially supported this, and when I talk about us as a staff supporting this, I want public to understand that this is not something where we came up and decided because we're tremendously in love with this development. As a matter of fact, I've never met them before and never worked with them before. But you know, we look at what can be done in this area under current regulations. The Culver Street frontage of these properties combined could accommodate 15 lots of a single family residential development. That is by right. They would have to come to the commission for essentially subdivision / site plan approval. On top of that, the commission also could, hypothetically speaking, if they wish to do that, approve additional 30 lots as an interior lots on top of that. So on this stretch of Culver Road, we could end up under current zoning without any changes and no discretion from the commission to decide much of these things. We could end up with something between 15 and 45 individual driveways. Last meeting, I submitted some traffic information that talked about number of accidents. We discussed the number of accidents on Culver Road, which was 1, and number of accidents in Deming Roads, which, if you remember, was 34. And then I included number of accidents on Connecticut Avenue. This was like a 3-year count. Connecticut Avenue is predominantly single family home, you know, smaller lot kind of street. Connecticut Avenue had 5 times the number of accidents that we had on Culver Street. I also know this just from experience, that intersection of number of different driveways with the road generally create worse traffic conditions. So like I said, this was definitely one of the reasons for me to originally say, you know what, it's better to have a design development with one exit than to have these bunch of these driveways out there. Under current zoning, we also can have a driveway access off of Culver Road for potentially industrial or commercial development in a PD zone. That is by right. Again, perhaps this development would go to the commission for site plan approval, but again, we're not talking special permit. So that's another scenario that could happen under what we currently have that I did not like. And then, thinking about proposed zoning, I looked at the uses that are allowed in the PD zone as a right. And these uses, you kind of then think about realistically. You can subtract the high generator uses, drive-through restaurant, high intensity retail, gas station. Those kind of businesses depend a lot on a drive-by traffic. Their locations are determined by their real estate people based on the existing counts on those roads. So they're not likely to go there. Another thing that could be allowed as a right is hotel that is, up to 4-story. Aside from the height, how would a hotel be different than the apartments across the street? It's the same kind of establishment. Visually, scale-wise, I just don't see how it is that different. Light industrial use, I was thinking about, so what happens if we have perhaps light industrial use there? A business owner who owns one of the establishments that are like light industrial use, that uses trucks and I don't know, some kind of commercial vehicles, is not very likely to locate here. They're not likely to want to have a business across the street from residential and directly adjacent to residential, because they will be subjected to constant complaints, constant town visit, constant enforcement of some sort. So they don't choose locations such as this. So what the applicant presented on the concept plan is really the most likely use that will happen there. We don't have a reason not to believe this applicant. They have already invested probably a significant amount of money. They're in review by the Wetlands Agency, which requires them to have sort of a high design plan already. So they're, when you come to this level of design, you have invested quite a bit in this project. And then I also further want to address again and readdress this thing that I said at the beginning. The fact that I continue to support this proposal, and I think this zoning change is actually a good thing in this location, is not because I haven't heard neighbors. I did hear them. I just happen to disagree with some of the statements that were made. I wish these neighbors were so vocal when last year, when a planning commission did the plan of conservation and development. If they participated in that process, and I implore them to follow up from this point on, because now everybody knows how to watch these meetings and how to attend and participate. Had they attended POCD, had they forced or pushed the commission to identify this parcel, this area on the map for preservation, have they continued then to the town council and had the town council went to the entire community, and then all communities said, yes, we want to spend money to purchase this property because it doesn't just benefit this neighborhood, it benefits somehow the whole community, then we would not have this situation right now, provided, again, that the property owners wanted to engage in that transaction with town. But that was the appropriate time and that was the appropriate way to participate in this process. And I just wish they did that. And because they didn't, I kind of want them to continue now and do that, be involved more. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much, Renata. I want to offer Attorney Sweeney, just in case he has any comments from hearing from our town planner before I go to the final rebuttal from the public. Just want to be fair and make sure that you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've made our case, and I could not agree more with every comment that your planner has made. I think it was eloquent, it was straight to the point, and it focused on the legal aspects that you have to consider in your decision. So I'm not going to say anything else. I just, again, okay. We hope that you close the meeting tonight, and if you want to vote tonight, that's great. If you want to vote at a later date, that's up to you. That's your choice. But thank you again for your time.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go final rebuttal from any opposition. If there's anybody in the opposition, I'm only going to give a total of 5 minutes for everybody. I'll recognize the first person, David Griffith. Go right ahead. Could unmute, please.
Mr. Griffith.
I just want to make it clear, the developer, I believe the attorney said that they've met up all of their obligations. I will refer the commission to its regulation 7.5.2 D, which is very clear. It's mandatory. Application for zone change shall be accompanied by a map of the subject properties and all properties within 500 feet and names and addresses of all property owners within 500 feet. That was not done. There was a list, not even a list, there was information that was received by the town last Friday. I know that for a fact because I asked for it. And I submit to the commission that that group of owners and addresses is still incomplete. The application is incomplete under the mandatory requirements of your zoning regulations. In addition to that, on your application, you specifically state that complete applications will be submitted not less than 14 days before the next TPZ meeting, and then they may be put on the agenda. This application never should have been put on the agenda. It was incomplete. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? And I'm going to turn to Renata. Would you like to address those comments at all?
Well, the applicant addressed it. I can say this much. As a commission, I suspect you went to enough of the land use seminars to know that my office is not allowed. We do not have authority to not accept or deny at the counter an application that comes into us submitted by a form, application form, and accompanied by a fee. The original intent behind the 500-foot providing the names was because in olden times when all these regulations were written, many towns notified 500-foot abutters and did not have a GIS. So it was on the applicant to actually provide a list of the abutters. We have since changed our regulations, or perhaps even from before, to notify just directly adjacent property owners and properties that are across the street. And we use the GIS because it's more accurate information for that. So yes, this regulation exists. It is in our regulations. However, its intent was for notification purposes, which we have done. We have mailed the abutters as we are required by state law. And that's all I have to say for that. So the commission if you feel that a lack of a document that between the time the application was submitted and now was submitted to application constitutes something that you would deny an application of, you can do that. I think that's nothing but a bureaucratic thing. And also, as a matter of general practice, we receive documents all the time through the review process. That is a very normal part of how business is done. We get few things, and then 3 days later, somebody will supplement a document and give us something in response to our review. So it's fairly normal.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have one last speaker, Frank Zarko. If you could just state your name and address for the record and unmute.
Yeah, Frank Zacco at 30 Salem Drive. Just really quick, we did not get any letters from the town notifying us what was going on. So I'm not sure when that was mailed out or how it was mailed, but we were never notified.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have gone through the whole process of the public hearing. I'm going to address the commissioners to see if they have any questions for Renata. I think we've heard all the public information and everything. I've read the minutes. I feel comfortable closing this petition 42-21, and I look to my other commissioners for input. Commissioner Sobieski.
He's muted.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne. I have a question for Renata. Connecticut Avenue has 5,500 cars per day. Deming Road and Culver has 8,600. Difference is 3,100 cars. And you had questioned the accidents. That was just, I don't see the correlation is that close. I think you should have found another road with some higher volumes on it. Secondly, you stated that if there's only one or two homes on a road, the town doesn't spend as much money on maintaining that road. I don't think that's a good statement. I think the town should be maintaining all roads to the same level. They may not need as much maintenance due to the fact of lower volume of traffic, but that is totally up to the town when they rate the roads. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners? I believe we've received plenty of information so that we can make a decision on this. I'm in favor of closing this petition 42-21. I'm going to ask Noreen to do a roll call vote on this if there's no other comments from the commissioners.
I want to second your motion.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion. Anthony, if you could make the motion.
Make a motion that we close petition 42-21 and act on tonight.
Thank you. And do I have a second on that?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Seconded from Commissioner Woods. Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Commissioner Claffey,
Yay.
Commissioner Fox, Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
No.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
and Chairman Payne.
Yeah, do we have an answer from Commissioner Fox?
Chairman Payne,
The answer is yes. And did Commissioner Fox
I
respond?
believe he got dropped
I
off
didn't
the
get one.
meeting again.
What was that, James? You think he dropped off?
Yeah, I'm looking on the attendees side just to confirm.
Okay.
I don't see him either.
Nope, I do have him 2 times in the attendees window. If he could raise his hand so I could see which one he is. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's pull him over. You should be with us now.
Commissioner Fox?
Hello.
Hi, Mike. Commissioner Fox, if you could, we were taking a vote there and I think you dropped off.
What were we voting on?
We were voting on closing the public hearing 42.21. Closing the public hearing.
No.
Okay. Thank you. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
5 to 2.
5 to 2. It is approved to close the public hearing. Thank you, Noreen.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is a public hearing petition 45 -21. It's a zoning text amendment, section 3.17.6 to allow recreational uses, including billiard and pool rooms, bowling alleys, arcades, and other passive amusement types uses in an I zone. Applicant is the Town Planning and Zoning. I'll turn this over to our town planner, Renata.
Sure, thank you. So this application came to us, this initiative for this application came to us because we have a business in town that would like to open a virtual golf type of establishment, and it is an industrial zone on Hartwood Road. As we looked into this, it turns out that such kind of business would be explicitly prohibited, not allowed in industrial zoning district. I did not see the reason for that. So I decided to propose the language as you can see it, instead of, but excluding these kind of establishments such as billiard and pool rooms, bowling alleys, arcades, and other passive amusement type, to actually include them. In industrial zoning district, these establishments require special permit. They have to come to the commission for a case-by-case decision. And if we are excluding them based on their scale, based on their traffic generation, based on, impacts like that, then the commission will have an option to look at it under special permit. To exclude them for any other reasons, I didn't really, I couldn't understand any other reason that would be present to exclude them, and I submitted this proposal to you. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing like the one before.
You're muted, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Thank you, James. Is there any questions from the other commissioners concerning these changes?
There's a couple people, Dominic. Woods and.
Thank you. Commissioner Woods, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really not a question, more of a comment. I applaud Renata going through some of these regulations of ours and updating them. Again, I think we're looking at some things as to how we used to do business 25, 30 years ago. And I think she's recognized that we're behind the times in some of this. And industrial land in particular is not being used as it was 30 years ago. And I think this is a good step forward in helping us, again, invite business back into the town. So I'm in favor of seeing this move forward.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Woods. Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Payne. I am also in favor of it. I just think it's a great idea to try to, open up some of these industrial areas that they're not being used to other, other activities. So I think this may very well be a good fit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners or questions?
Dominic, do you want a motion to close this and move it to old business?
I have to go to the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I totally forgot. It's getting late. Sorry.
All right. If there's no objection, then I will go to the public. If there's anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application, please raise your hand.
I see no one at the moment.
Okay, is there anybody in objection to this? Anybody in opposition? Anyone in opposition?
Again, I see no one, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Claffey, I would entertain.
Make a motion that we close petition 45-21 zoning text amendment.
Motion made by Commissioner Claffey.
Vote on tonight.
Do I have a second? By Fox. Noreen, if you could do the roll call vote, please.
Okay. Commissioner Claffey,
Yay.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Chairman Payne,
Yes.
unanimous.
Thank you very much, Noreen.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next petition is petition 46-21. It's a zoning text amendment, section 6.1.1 to amend the required parking for residential dwellings to comply with the Public Act number 2129, substitute House Bill number 6107, section 4D9. Applicant is the Newington Town Planning and Zoning. Once again, I'll turn it over to our town planner for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this amendment is, and I had told you about this before, it's in an attempt to just bring our regulations in compliance with the current general statutes. The specific section that from the statute that I'm trying to aiming to address with this amendment is the section that was added this summer that became effective on October 1 of 2021, that it says essentially that you cannot create regulations or regulations that you adopt cannot require more than one parking spaces for each studio or one bedroom dwelling, or more than two parking spaces for two bedroom or more. So we have, this is one of these options where, community has ability to opt out of the provisions at any point in time in future. We talked about this before. Some of these recent proposals that we saw had taken advantage of provisions that we currently have to either defer construction of parking or take incentives in the TOD district to reduce number of minimum parking that's required under zoning regulations. We have been told continuously that our minimum requirements are too high and too high for what's needed actually. And that's what this amendment is intended to fix. Whether we adopt this or not tonight is, if we adopt it, is just better. It's cleaner, it's better for me. If you do not adopt it, I still have to review all of these residential proposals under this provision, regardless of our regulations, simply because our regulations currently do not meet the state law. So with that being said, I would ask that you approve.
Very good. Yes, we've talked about this several times. Thank you, Renata, for that presentation. I'll ask the commissioners to see if they have any questions for you concerning this. Is there any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner, Vice Chairman Claffey, go right ahead.
Just one question. In the reference material, you're referencing the apartments. Or would this also tie into something that came to us with the wording of a condominium, where it is ownership and not rental?
So James, if you can scroll to the actual proposal text.
Okay.
So as you can see in this table, we treat everything as a dwelling unit. The ownership is not in question here. State does not treat anything based on ownership. So we're looking at dwelling units and number of bedrooms only. And that's what dictates number of parking spaces.
Anything further?
So let me just clarify this. If you're doing it, when you say dwelling unit, okay, I'm trying to understand why we're just basically cleaning it up to use the word dwelling unit, but then on one thing we're trying to clean it up based on bedroom size, number of bedrooms. So I'm trying to understand why. So if a single family house with 5 bedrooms in their plan, they would be required to have.
They're required 2 spaces.
2, okay.
If a single family home has 5 bedrooms, they're required 2 parking spaces. If a single family home has 1 bedroom, they're required 1. If an apartment complex has a unit with 1 studio apartment and 3 bedroom units, one will be required 1 parking space and the other ones will be required 2 per unit. So that's how that would be covered.
Okay, and one last question. I know we haven't had it in a while, but it was back in, I think, 2014 or 15. I see how we have divided this chart up to housing for the elderly, and then on the bottom, you've talked about hospital, sanitarium, convalescent home, or nursing home. Are we including, or are we using the verbiage, or is it inclusive when we talk about assisted living or memory care facilities? I know there was one proposed a long time ago. Don't know if it'll ever happen. I'm just trying to make sure that I assume that's all under the bottom hospital sanitarium designation, or does assisted living and memory care under certain state regulations become their own thing? I only asked because you weren't here at the time, and when it did come before us, I think I was an alternate possibly at the time. There was a lot of discussion over the amount of cars because you had employees there and you had residents who could live there with a car, and you had some which basically, as they transitioned to memory care, they didn't have a car. So there was a lot of debate in those meetings. I don't care either way. I just want to see how that would fit into this chart.
So Commissioner Claffey, thank you. This attempt was only to fix our current uncompliant regulation with regards to the dwelling units. I think if a development proposal came in and was for one of those memory care places or some other kind of commercial establishment, we would have to look at our definitions and figure out like which definition it fits under, and then that's how I would use this chart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Renata, if we opt out, what then is the next step?
So the commission can begin process of opting out of this. What is involved is that there would have to be 2 separate public hearings, one held in front of the commission and one held in front of town council. Both bodies would have to hold hearing and after that decide to opt out of the provision that demands one parking space, no more than 1 parking space for a single 1-bedroom and studio, and no more than 2. So then if we opt out of this particular requirement of general statutes, then we can create regulations any kind of way we want. We can then have a regulation that is like the one that we have currently, which demands 2 parking spaces per, 1-bedroom perhaps unit. So in order to make your current regulations legal, the community would have to opt out through this 2-step process.
Okay, thank you. I understand the process. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, one, thank you, Chairman Payne. One quick question. How are you going to enforce this with apartments and condos? I'm just curious, that's all.
This is for new applications coming in, I believe. Renata, if you could answer that.
That is correct. This is pertaining to your regulations. So anything that comes in from this point on will come in on this ratio.
Okay, so in other words, at some point in time, if a new application came in today or tomorrow, all right, then there has to be some mechanism that somebody has to enforce that, okay, you're only going to have, you got a 1-bedroom apartment, condo, whatever it is, you get 1 parking space. No matter how many people, if you're living with somebody and they have a car, you're only entitled to 1 space. Am I correct?
No, I don't think that's the way it is. We're using this as a calculation for the developers to find out how many parking spaces they need, but then I believe some extra are also figured in, or we'll use this as a calculation, and the way it'll work out is there'll be extra parking spaces in case somebody needs 2. Maybe Renata can explain it a little better.
So what happens is these are minimum zoning requirements. The applicant, let's say somebody came in with an application tomorrow for 20 dwelling units and all of them are single bedroom, 1-bedroom. They would need 20 parking spaces minimum to show on the plan. If they were accommodating couples in their 1-bedroom units and their targeted market of who was living there was perhaps couples with 2 cars, they would want more parking. They're welcome to build 3 if they want to, as long as they meet our buffering requirements and setbacks and the other things. So they can do more, but what this general statute is saying is we, the town, the commission, our regulations cannot require more than 1 per 1-bedroom and 2 per 2 or more.
Okay.
Thank you. I understand now. Thank you.
Thank you, Renata. Any other questions from the commissioners?
One more, Dominic.
Certainly. Go ahead, Commissioner Woods.
Yeah, again to Renata. Would this then open the door for existing apartment complexes, condominium complexes to come in for a site plan modification to reduce the number of parking spaces, correct? If they so choose?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it would.
I thought so. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If there's no objection, I'll go to the public. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anybody wish? We have one hand raised. Doug
We have one
Sweeney.
hand raised.
Are you like to speak in favor of this application, or go right ahead? Please unmute. Okay.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. I have
No
nothing to say.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? I would entertain a motion to close petition 46-21 from someone.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Fox. Do I have a second?
By Sobieski.
And seconded by Commissioner Sobieski. And Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Commissioner Claffey,
Yay.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Chairman Payne,
Yes,
unanimous.
very good. Thank you, Noreen.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the approval of minutes of 10/27/2021 regular meeting. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by
Sobieski.
and seconded by Commissioner Fox. Is there any corrections or any comments for the minutes?
Yes.
Hearing none.
Oh,
Go ahead, Commissioner Sobieski. I'm sorry.
yes. I believe Mr. Rossi said the statement in the minutes was incorrect and needs to be corrected.
Do you know what the statement is or?
Something about, I believe it was pushing through Costello Road. I don't believe he said that. I believe it's something different. He stated it in the earlier minutes, or in the meeting rather.
Well, he made
did.
a statement. He made a statement in today's public hearing, so I think that's good enough. Am I correct, Eric?
I mean, you can have Noreen re-listen to it and amend the minutes to his statement, I guess.
Okay. Did you understand that, Noreen?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. All in
You're
favor?
welcome.
All in favor of approving the minutes with that amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion carries to accept the minutes amended.
What the?
Okay, the next thing is where there is no new business. So we'll be in old business. And I'll read the first petition is petition 42-21 zone map change from R20 to PD zone at 35, 65, 67, and 69 Culver Street and 258 Deming Street. Applicant AR Building Company Incorporated, owner RD3 LLC, and Gene Holtner. Contact Bongiovanni Group Incorporated, Alan Bongiovanni. Renata? Do you have?
Yes, so
anything
at
you'd like-
this point, I will just restate that thing about petition. So I confirmed with our town attorney on this today because we received a protest petition this morning and only preliminarily reviewed that. We were not able to fully verify it yet. We just didn't have sufficient time to do that. The commission may act tonight, and depending on how your vote is, if your vote already is supermajority vote or 2/3 vote, then we don't even need to verify the petition. Then that's what petition is for, to demand certain amount of votes. If your vote is less than 5-2, or for example 4-3, then we would not advertise until we verify the petition. So you can, if you choose to do that, you can act tonight. And we have a certain amount of time under statute to verify the petition and then post whether the motion passed or not.
Okay, very good. Do you have a motion prepared for us? Renata, yeah. Any commissioners have any comments and questions? Are you comfortable? Vice Chairman Claffey, would you like to read the motion?
Motion petition 42-21, zone map change from R20 to PD zone at 35, 65, 67, and 69 Culver Street and 258 Deming Street. Applicant AR Building Company, Inc. Owner RD3 LLC and Gene S. Haltner. Contact Bongiovanni Group, Inc., Alan Bongiovanni. Move to approve the zoning map amendment with an effective date of November 24th, 2021. Reason for the approval of the proposed amendment is consistent with several provisions of the Town of Newington POCD and with surrounding zoning.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Claffey. We have a motion from Vice Chairman Claffey. Do I have a second?
Second, Commissioner Havens.
Thank you, Commissioner Havens, with that second. And Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, I had my hand up and it
Oh,
seems like, I don't know if it's working, but
I didn't see it. I'm sorry, Commissioner Lenars. Go right ahead.
no worries, no worries. So, I mean, I have some questions on this petition wholeheartedly.
Okay.
Nothing concerning the thing that was just submitted tonight, looking for a 4-3 versus a 5-2. More or less questions concerning the zone change overall. There was stuff raised tonight that I wrote down that I have questions on that I'm not sure if I got answers to. I voted earlier to definitely close the public hearing, the public hearing portion of this 4221, because it has been open for 3 meetings and we've had some amazing feedback from some of the people for, against, whatever it might be. I just don't know if I'm comfortable voting on it this evening. I'm comfortable closing.
Would you like to answer, if you want to direct your questions to Renata, maybe she can answer your questions?
I don't have them formally prepared to ask her. I have some stuff written down that I had on my end. I'm just not sure if any of the other commissioners feel the way I do in terms of closing it versus voting on it in the same night. I definitely voted to close it because I said it's been open for 3 meetings. I think it should be closed. The town did an outstanding job of coming out, like I said, voting. I mean, speaking for or against, that's not my issue. But raising concerns and stuff like that. Some pertinent and some not, to be honest. But I don't know if anybody else feels the same way in terms of closing it, but not voting on it.
We can open it up on the floor. Commissioner Woods, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually in agreement with Commissioner Lenars. I think this is one of the hardest applicants we've had in front of us in quite a while. There's a lot moving here. There's a lot of passion from the public, a lot of emotion from the public. I think staff has done a really good job at presenting us a clear and decisive, in their opinion, the options that are there and what can happen on this piece of property if we don't do this. It's one of these things that if we don't do the zone change, there could be 35 to 40 houses along Culver Street, most likely directly in opposition of what most of the people that call tonight don't want to see. But I'm struggling with how we get there. And I would like a little bit more time. I would like to see this postponed till the next meeting if possible to take action on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your opinion. I appreciate it. Commissioner Fox.
Yes, thank you. I think that Commissioner Woods and Commissioner Lenars make some good points. And all the while, once we close it, I've been thinking to myself, I'd like to kind of think about it a little more, read the minutes, and take a little time to make my decision. So I would like to postpone it also.
Completely understandable. Maybe Commissioner Fox and Commissioner or Vice Chairman Claffey might want to remove the second and the motion. A friendly remove.
It's Havens and myself.
Havens. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Havens made the motion. Do you mind removing the motion? And same thing with Commissioner Fox?
Havens needs to remove the second.
Okay.
I have no issue with that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
I have,
And then-
no worries with removing my motion to move this for a vote tonight. I think as all the other commissioners have said, and I think is to keep it closed and move it to next meeting or action. I do ask that. I don't think it needs to go another 2 or more than 2.
Okay, it'll be on our agenda for our next meeting. And if there's any commissioners that have any questions, you should prepare your questions for Renata. And we'll have a discussion about it. And I'm going to go to Commissioner Sobieski. You had
Yes, thank you, Chairman Kane. I too agree with both Commissioner Linares, Wood, and Fox. I want to keep it closed, but I just like to review a few things in my mind. Thank you.
Yep. I agree. I think that's a good idea. Is there any other commissioners that have a comment? Commissioner Linares, did you have something else you'd like to say?
Yeah, I did. You asked me earlier if I had any questions. I mean, the one blatantly big question that I have concerning the petition is I've been approached by people throughout the town that have watched these meetings that are for, against, and to be honest, just they've told me some of them that they don't have a dog in the fight, so they don't really know what's going on too much, but they're not really concerned too much. So I've heard it all. I've heard everything from pro to, hey, I don't live there, to totally against, and I understand them all. But the one thing that I need answered, not as an interpretation of the regulation from the developer, because I understand where he's coming from, and not from the people in the area that are opposed to it because they don't want the change in their area. I understand where they're coming from. The one thing that unfortunately we were directed towards was obviously the petition at hand that's going to come behind this. So if the petition was brought to our attention for a vote with the existing development that was shown to us, because they said that the developers sometime give us an enlightening view of what's going to come behind this zone change, and that's total normal practice, which I agree with. That if the petition was to be changed to PB and the petition at hand, according to some, cannot be approved because of the fact that there's no direct access to the Berlin Turnpike or a road that dumps onto the Berlin Turnpike. Is that true? Is it not true? I need an interpretation from our professionals.
I can actually.
Because I mean, that doesn't play into the
I
zone
totally
change.
I totally understand.
It's totally separate, and the applicant, I think, has an opportunity to bring us a plan and address those concerns and all the other concerns. But I'll let Renata go right ahead and clear it up.
Finish my question first.
So Commissioner Linares, our current interpretation of that particular section of the regulation, which does not belong in zone change, but it has been broad enough for people to question, is that we require either an access that is direct to Berlin Turnpike or direct to a street that directly connects to Berlin Turnpike. I had checked with our town attorney on that. That is his interpretation. The applicant has a number of choices to address that comment from us. One of the choices could be that they argue this in front of you, because ultimately the Planning and Zoning Commission is the body that writes zoning regulations. Those are your regulations. And ultimately, after all of us, you are the body that decides on who whose interpretation is correct, right? So it's possible that they will have this discussion in front of you. It is possible that they apply for a variance. It is possible that they redesign the way their access is configured. So there is too many things, but it's really, the ball is in their court right now to figure out which way they want to proceed on that. And then ultimately we will know, and ultimately we will discuss it then. But right now the staff's interpretation is similar to what residents are saying, that, you know, we consider access to be vehicular access, and the regulation says that you should connect to either directly Berlin Turnpike or to streets such as Deming or other street that has direct access to Berlin. I hope that helps.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. I just wanted your interpretation of the regulations, not someone else's interpretation that might be for or against the project. My point is, some of the comments that I get was that and I understand that the entrance to Deming, Culver, Berlin Turnpike is not an issue. I understand that completely, and it's not an issue for me going forward to approve or deny a zone change from R20 to PD. My point is, what happens to the property if approved to a PD? This is a resident that brought this to me, that if it's approved to a PD and then you deny the application, or the application gets pulled and it never comes to fruition, the capabilities of that piece of property being developed, not just with what's on the table, but for other things, and then almost impossible to deny going forward. Are we opening ourselves up to more liability for the residents to have something in their area that obviously doesn't fit that zone?
Well, I'll tell you, as far as the chairman here, I have confidence in myself, and I think I have some confidence in the other members that they're not going to put a big box store over there on the property just because this development falls through. I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept a gas station or a hotel or something like that. I think a residential development is perfect for that site. That is blended in with real protection to the tree buffer and the preservation of the wetlands and the buffer area. So I have confidence myself. Yes, legally, I guess a lot of different things could go on there after we change the zone, but I care enough that we're not going to put something there that's going to be detrimental to the public, such as a big box store. I don't see a big box store wanting to go there and exiting out on that street, even though it could technically go in there. I hope that clears it up for you a little bit, and maybe Renata might have something to say on that too.
The only thing that I can add, that is the exercise that I went through when I issued my report. So we'll look at what can happen there as of right, and then we'll look what can happen hypothetically speaking. Let's say they never came with the concept proposal. I discussed the possibility of some kind of high traffic generators. I do not believe that the market would ever support. I believe that the real estate people who run drive-through restaurants know enough to not want to go on a site that does not carry, on a road that doesn't carry sufficient traffic. So these high generator businesses are really realistically not likely. They do require special permit. They would go to you for approval. A hotel is permitted as of right. The hotel as a use does not seem to me to be much different than the apartments across the street. Even though it's commercial, it's still people coming in cars, going into the hotel and sleeping overnight. So it's like similar kind of use. Light industrial use is, again, not very likely to want to go there just based on the fact that, their dust production and noise emission will generate sufficient amount of complaints from that neighborhood. You know, industrial owner does not want to be across the street from apartments. In situations where apartments are built next to the industrial owners, generally industrial businesses come in opposition of that because they don't want to deal with constant complaints from the tenants that move in and residents that move in. So none of this seems to be very likely. So the most likely use is going to be, in my opinion, is going to be a residential use, whether it's this developer or some other residential development. But that is the use that's congruent with that area. You're looking at most likely a use that is going to be a multifamily use too, just based on the amount of wetlands and the fact that if you have a subdivision with a bunch of driveways, there will be an issues on that street. So again, a subdivision developer will probably not be as inclined as the multifamily housing developer. So that's what that report was about. You know, what happens if this doesn't happen, because we're not even supposed to necessarily consider this.
Does that help, Commissioner Lenars?
It helps immensely, more than you know, Mr. Chairman. What you said earlier about having confidence in the commission and yourself as the chairman, I'm not sure you understand how comforting that is to hear, as far as us being a commissioner and as far as the concerned citizens at home saying, hey, like, you know, what if these guys get aggravated and they pull their petition off someday because they don't want to go through this anymore, and then a fast food chain wants to open up there. It's pretty comforting to hear that as a resident that might have some concerns. And obviously we've heard from plenty of residents that have concerns. I understood it the whole way. I wasn't confused. I just think sometimes hearing it from one of us in layman's terms is very comforting for some of the people to hear, and they need to know that their best interests are protected at all costs. Yes, I agree. Residential dwellings, whether it be apartments, condos, R20 homes, whatever it might be, is a better fit there than a plaza with a drive-through. So, and the residents need to know that, and they need to know that they have our best interest. We have their best interest in their outlook on what's going on and what's going forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Claffey?
You can move on to Woods or Stanley.
Okay, Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the commission for pulling down the motion and allowing me the time to formulate my questions to Renata for our next meeting. I do appreciate it very much.
Not a problem at all. Commissioner Sobieski?
I'm sorry, I didn't know I had my hand up. No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And I'll go back to Vice Chairman Claffey or any other commissioners if you have anything else.
Well, I do want to say one thing, and again, it's just like last meeting we had over this situation. There was, 70 plus people on the call, and now when we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of what we do as a commission, there's only 39 people, and probably 15 of them are staff or commissioners. But it gets back to Commissioner Lenars. I know he was on this commission many years ago, and then there was a stoppage or a gap. But I remember this conceptual proposal idea came to us when Chairman Aida was the chairman. But we want to let the general public know that we as a commission over the years have changed to this, hey, you want a zone change, please bring us a conceptual. Years ago, that never happened. A person, a company could come and say, we want a zone change, and just be at that and not know what might be coming down the pike. No pun intended to the turnpike. So I do want it on the record that this conceptual proposal that sometimes does muddy the waters when we're in a zone change, text zone change, or text amendment. It muddies it very, very hard, because we have to remember as a commission, we're voting on the text change in front of us, not the proposal of what might come. So it is an odd way to do it, but it's more transparent to the resident and it's more transparent to the commission, because we don't want to make that wrong change and have a little Lowe's #2 right there, which
Mhm.
could happen. We're
Yep.
putting our faith in them and they're putting their faith in us. So, I know it sounds like we want to move this forward, but this is probably the longest zone text amendment we've had in all the years I've been on. And unfortunately, the concerns are based on traffic speed and things that unfortunately they should be dealing with the police department on, not yelling and screaming and complaining to us, because we don't deal with the speeds. Unfortunately, some of the complaints that we had to listen to tonight and the nights before, it didn't seem no one had a problem, because for all the days I travel on that road, I've never seen a speed trap on that road. So I know they voice their concern where it's going to affect them the most, and that's our commission. But to the general public, some of these concerns have nothing to do with our commission.
Thank you very much. Great points. So if there's no objection, we're tabling petition 42-21 till our next meeting, and our next petition is petition 45-21, zoning text amendment, section 3.17.6 to allow recreational uses including billiard and pool rooms, bowling alleys, arcades, and other passive amusement type uses in the I zone, applicant Newington TPZ. Does everybody feel comfortable moving forward with this?
Yep.
Make a motion
Definitely.
that we,
Okay, the motion is up now. If you could read that.
petition 45-21 zoning text amendment, section 3.17.6 to allow recreational uses, including billiard and pool rooms, bowling alleys, arcades, and other passive amusement type uses in the I zone, applicant Newington TPZ. I move to approve the zoning text amendment with an effective date of November 24, 2021. Reason for the approval: the proposed zoning regulation amendment meets the following policy of the economic development chapter of the POCD, page 56. Number 1, continue to promote appropriate economic development in Newington.
Okay, motion
Second.
made and seconded by Commissioner Fox.
Fox. Yep.
Okay. And Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Commissioner Claffey,
Yay.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Chairman Payne,
Yes,
unanimous.
very good. Thank you, Noreen.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next petition is petition 46-21, zoning text amendment, section 6.1.1 to amend the required parking for residential dwellings to comply with the Public Act number 21-29, substitute House Bill number 6107, section 4D9, applicant Newington Town Planning and Zoning. This is something that we talked about for parking requirements. Is that everybody feel comfortable moving this forward? We have a motion, I believe. Would somebody like to read the motion?
Sure, I will, Mr. Chairman.
46-21 zoning text amendment, section 6.1.1 to amend the required parking for residential dwellings to comply with Public Act number 21-29. Substitute House Bill number 6107, section 4(d)(9), applicant Newington TPZ. Move to approve the zoning text amendment with an effective date of November 24th, 21. The proposed zoning regulation amendment is consistent with the state law as amended in July 2021.
Motion made by Commissioner Fox. Do I have a second?
Second by Sobieski.
Seconded by Commissioner Sobieski. Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Early. Commissioner Claffey,
Yay.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Chairman Payne,
Yes,
unanimous.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, we are, next thing on the agenda would be our town planner's report. And
The only thing that I will enter into this report is that for the next meeting, I intend to talk to you about our driveway and parking standards. I have been able to locate some minutes as well as a copy of proposal for the recreational vehicles. So I'll show that to you, and then maybe we can wrap that one up and I can propose an officially proceed and propose the regulation amendment. And if we have time next time, maybe we will touch on some uses in business turnpike zone. This is that continuing project that I'm working on. So that's all I have to do.
very good, thank you. And we all received the CROG letters. I don't think there's anything special there that we need to be aware of. Does anybody have any comments concerning that? If not, then we'll move forward. We are at public participation. If there's anybody from the public that would like to speak on items that are on the agenda, please raise your hand.
2 people.
And 07 Rose Lyons, go right ahead.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. I just have a comment about what Renata had to say about people participating in the POCD plan. I participated in 2010, and I think there was a lot of people participating at that time because of the issue on Cedar Mountain with Toll Brothers and the Cohen properties, Markup. Unfortunately, with the 2020-2030 plan, in the beginning, even when we were able to gather at the high school, there was not a very good cross-section of people that participated. And as far as I'm concerned, it was mostly people probably my age and just a few younger ones that got involved with the process. And then after that, COVID hit. So yes, you can put some of the blame on not participating on the people, but you also have to realize that it was COVID times. It was hard to participate by Zoom. And maybe when the 2030 plan comes up, I know I won't be around, but maybe the town can do something to advertise it a little bit more and get some people to participate, because that's how we're going forward. We're going to go forward by what the residents want. And if the residents don't participate, then you don't know what they want in the plan of conservation and development. Thank you for your consideration of everybody's thoughts tonight. I'm pleased to see you close the meeting or close the public hearing, but are going to bring it forward to your next meeting. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Rose. Good night. And we have Stu. Go right ahead. Please just unmute, state your name and record and your address for the record, please.
I don't know if he knows that.
You're mute. There you go. You're unmuted.
Awesome. Thank you. Stu Drost, 74 Glenview. I appreciate everyone's time tonight. And I want to say, after 2 extremely long meetings, I appreciate what you guys do for the town. Thank you. I was asking it as a follow-up from the last meeting, about 15 minutes later than it actually is tonight. I believe Commissioner Payne had asked the town planner to pull up minutes from October of 2020, discussion as to an alteration to commercial vehicle parking, making things a little more small business friendly type of thing. That's how we closed out the last meeting, and it was already, almost a year old then. What's the scoop with that? Is basically, was that ever done?
I'll ask the town planner. I believe the town planner touched on it a little bit. We are planning on getting that on the agenda, hopefully the next meeting.
So what was it touched on? sir.
That was exactly correct. Just in my report, a couple of minutes earlier, I had indicated that our next meeting, I intend to bring a couple of things, including the discussion on recreational vehicles, because I was able to locate some minutes and I was able to locate what was drafted by a previous planner as a draft. So I will include that in the next packet. The commission will discuss it, and that's what was touched on.
Gotcha. The reason why I was asking, Renata, was because one, you'd mentioned recreational vehicles instead of the commercial vehicles that was discussed last meeting. And then the second reason was the minutes you had referenced are actually off from the minutes where the commercial vehicles were discussed a year.
Do you want to, tomorrow possibly get together, call Renata, Stu, and give her anything that you want?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
That would be best. If you have something that can help me, I would really appreciate it, Mr. Draws.
Not a problem at all, of course. We're all working together here.
Thank you very much.
And not a problem. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public? Anyone else from the public?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. Very good. That's a good thing because my battery's running low. We have remarks from commissioners. Any commissioners have any remarks? Any commissioners have any remarks?
I have one question.
Go right ahead.
You know, we've heard a lot about, and I've said this, I stopped saying it, but now I'm getting tired of hearing it. We need this town, with the help of Renata, to push what goes on in this town, especially this commission, because I volunteer a hell of a lot of time to it. We need this town to start using their Facebook page to promote when the meetings are, where the meetings are. We need our elected town officials to use their Facebook pages that people read. I'm sorry to say, but most people don't go to the website and see what meeting's in on Tuesday night or Wednesday night or Thursday night. We want people to come. We know they're out there. They're on Culver Road. They're out in the streets complaining, but they don't know anything. You go to our website and it's like going through 1,000 links to try to find when our meetings are. People have their phones in their hand. 80% of the people find out information in towns by their cell phone. I'll prove the fact. That's how they find out about things. We need this town to start using the social media of their Facebook page. Not anything else, is not what's happening in Newington, this or that. Put it right out there on the Newington Facebook page, please. Because listening to these people that say they don't know what's going on in this town is starting to literally drive me nuts.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else have anything? Any other comments? Closing remarks? I want to thank everybody. I want to thank James and Renata and the entire staff. I thought the meeting went well, and everybody can have a good night. Motion to adjourn.
Don't move. Fox.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Hey, everyone.
Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you all. I think my batteries are running low at this point.
Yeah.
My internal battery has run down.